Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 210. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. It reminds me of Cleveland somehow. Is it Cleveland? It smells like Cleveland.
How's it going, eh?
We'll actually expand upon that more on this episode. Longtime listeners know that the end of May, beginning of June ends up being my crazy time of the year. Every job has, and this just happens to be mine. Because of that, Jim and I recorded tonight a very quick, impromptu, speeding bullet style episode. This one's a little easier for me to kind of put out, rather unedited, and I'm going to kind of put a disclaimer on that beforehand. This is really an unedited show. I wanted to get something out for you this week, and I didn't want to put out JLA Avengers unedited because there's a lot of stuff that we want to clean up on that episode. I usually give listener guests the opportunity to restate things, and sometimes we make flubs on there that we really don't want on that type of episode, whereas this one is a little bit more casual and a little bit more relaxed. So I wanted to get you this. We cover a ton of books and really just had some great comic chat, and this is kind of impromptu. So I hope you really enjoy this one. There is some editing on this one. It's not that it's completely unedited. It's just a little bit easier for me to edit this one. We'll be back in less than a week with JLA Avengers issue 2, and that's going to be its own separate episode. Then we're going to come back and do another one of these because there's a lot of current books that Jim and I just really want to get to and really want to talk about. You'll see we kind of cover a whole different gambit than the last couple episodes on this one. We do refer back to a few things via the forum, some discussion points that were brought up there that I think are really interesting to talk about on show topics. Because my thought is usually if something comes up on the forum, that means that more people that are listening at least are curious or have the same kind of vibe. So I thought it was worth bringing up and discussing. So we have some really cool things. And we have a voicemail that actually we kind of impromptu recorded as well. Enjoy this episode. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, I want to give people kind of an example of the savings that you get. I just picked 5 random titles. Secret Six, JSA All Stars, JSA, Magog, and Booster Gold. And I picked them because we talk about those books this episode, but I picked just 5 random titles. The retail price is $15.95 for those books. Now, if you get them at DCBService.com, you're paying $179, $179, $179, $179, and a $239. That's $9.55. That's a savings of $6.40. Now, for me, the normal people would say, well, I'm saving $6.40. For me, that's 3 more books, which is kind of the way I look at it. But it's kind of an interesting thing because I still go to the comic shops. I still visit my locals. I haven't given that up because I'm dealing with DCB Service. But what it's enabled me to do is it's enabled me to buy more books. I visit my comic shop. I support them too. So it's kind of great for those of you out there. They're saying, "Hey, I support my local. Why do I want to go to a mail order shop?" It's kind of an interesting balance of being able to do both. Because to me, DCB Service, I've met the great people at DCB Service. They've become my local shop just because I've seen them at cons and stuff like that. They become friends. The amount of care they put into taking care of my books is just wonderful. I can't recommend the site enough. So I think there is something out there for people too. If you want to support your local shop, you can use mail order as a way to supplement and kind of do a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. But DCB Service is just an amazing service, and I absolutely really adore working with them. I get my books shipped because of our location from them out. I believe they ship them out on Tuesday. Books come out on Wednesday. I have my books on Thursday. So tomorrow, actually, as of this recording, is when my new books come, and I'm just so excited for that time, and I want to thank DCB Service for the amount of care they put into my books. But I just sort of kind of throw out there just kind of what the savings means for you as a comic reader. Those who are like saying, geez, I want to read and support more books. This is a way you can do that, and it's great that, mail order companies like DCB Service are providing us that opportunity. So it doesn't mean you have to give up one to do the other. It's just kind of a great way to do some savings, and I want to thank DCB Service for taking care of that for us. I want to shout out InStockTrades.com. Batman the Cult. Jim and I are going to be taking vacations at the end of June and the beginning of July. And Jim's going to be gone for 3 weeks. So we were kind of looking at, how can we get episodes together and put them out for when he's gone? There's 2 episodes we're going to put out during that time. The first one is Batman the Cult. That's going to be airing during the vacation time. We're actually going to record that quite soon. So even if you want to get in audio comments or emails or things like that, please send them to ragingbullets@gmail.com. Call us at 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype if you want to get a voicemail in there. Batman the Cult's a new printing of the classic Batman tale collecting the 4-issue miniseries from 1989, Batman, Deacon Blackfire. Regularly $19.99. With the in-stock trades 47% off discount, it's only $10.59. It's one of my favorite stories of all time, and it's one that we're going to be airing while that vacation goes on. That's InStockTrades.com, your source for your comic book collecting needs. And I mean, they're the ones that get the collected editions, hardcovers, trade paperbacks. If you're looking for them, go over to InStockTrades.com. They're going to have them there. And DBCBService.com is, of course, your pre-order source. Speaking of those episodes, I was just talking about the fact that we're going to be doing Batman the Cult. One of the other episodes during vacation, greatest DC Universe stories of all time. We didn't forget about it. That's one where we're going to save that one and we're going to air it right while that vacation time's coming on. So we actually are going to get to that. We didn't forget. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we go over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Woot! Which will make more sense later as well.
Can Batman escape? One hint, the worst is yet to come.
Jim, for this episode, we're going to talk some speeding bullets. There's a whole bunch of comic topics and related topics that we wanted to chat about. And I remember you actually, in our conversation, might as well just go right here, you said that there was a couple Vertigo books that actually you and I have both been enjoying that have just kicked off that we wanted to chat about. Do you want to kind of kick off which ones you want to talk about? Oh, yeah,
definitely. And it's funny because with these things, I'm not going to go too heavy into it. I just want to make sure people are aware of these titles. These two relatively new titles, iZombie and American Vampire. You know, iZombie just had issue 2 just come out. Issue 1 was a $1 issue, and it gives you a great look at what iZombie's about. You know, for me, I would pay full price for that issue, but you're only getting it for $1. Plus, you see exactly where this thing's going to go. You can see what kind of story it is, and you can know relatively cheaply if this is a title for you.
Well, why don't we talk a little bit about what iZombie is about, though, for people who maybe have not checked it out, because there is 2 issues out right now, so I think we can talk a little bit about issue 1, because we have Gwen Dillon, who, you start off with her right away, she's a gravedigger, and it turns out that she is the zombie. She actually is a zombie, and she's got this dilemma. She seems like this normal, nice, every girl. She's like the girl you want to take home, right?
Yeah.
Well, the trick between her is she is in fact a zombie, and in order to stay coherent, she has to eat brains. But there's a side effect to eating the brains in the sense that the brains of the person that she eats, she sees things that happen to them, things about their life. In particular, it seems to be that she's seeing how they died, which then brings the whole twist to the series. But it's not just about zombies. It looks like we're also going to have in this series vampires, definitely ghosts, because one of her best friends is a ghost. And there's a cool little twist to each one. Like, the ghost is trapped in that area. And they deal with real issues like the fact that what would it be like to survive as a ghost? You aren't able to eat. You're intangible. It's all these different things. Like, what would that do to you psychologically, and how her being a friend to this person is helping her kind of stay lucid and with it, even though there's times where she's not. It to me, it's just such a neat premise for a series. And that there are people hunting down these supernatural characters. It's kind of like the twist of TV shows like Supernatural. It's a twist on it in the sense that we're rooting for the zombie in this. Yeah. And the bad guys are sort of the 2 characters from Supernatural that are hunting them down. At least that's the way it seems so far. I'm sure that there's more to develop with all that. But I love the twist, because she isn't immediately a likable character. The artwork is fantastic. I am a huge fan of Madman, Atomic Comics, and Madman in general, Michael Allred. And he's doing the art. His wife is the colorist. The writing on this book is just fantastic. This seems to be just a great partnership of artist and writer. And it's just an interesting, unique book. I'm with you. The $1 issue for me wasn't the hook, but I can't echo enough your sentiments in the sense that $1 is kind of, it's a great, I love that Vertigo does this, because $1 is a great jumping on point for a new series. And what I mean about not being the hook, Michael Allred was the hook for me. I was in, they could have charged $10 for the issue and I would have bought it, because I adore his artwork, from Red Rocket 7 to Atomics. I've got everything that he's done. And X-Force over at Marvel, he's just a fantastic artist, and I dig his style. And so this is to me was just kind of a no-brainer on a purchase. The first issue does delve a lot into it, though. It gives you a really nice taste of the series, and it's a cheap price point. So if you're like sitting here thinking to yourself, premise sounds kind of cool to me, you're right. The $1 is an incentive. Was the $1 the incentive for you, Jim?
Yes. Actually, when I was first going over the order, I kind of like skipped over it because I'm like, I don't know if I want to add another new title to my my pull list. And literally, it was the fact that it was $1. Because I was thinking, I can spend $1 on a thing. I was in my local shop. It was out. Throw $1 on there. And literally, it was the thing that pulled me in. And as soon as I read this first issue, I was like, oh my God, why did I miss this? Why did I skip over this before? Because I was actually thinking I would just start off and just go right to trade on this, wait for the trade to come out, because it's a Vertigo title. I figured the trade would be coming soon enough, but there's no way I'm taking this one to trade. This is too much of it's got a nice blend of comedy, but it also, there's going to be the mystery, kind of crime-solving elements to it, but there's some kind of, it's looking like we're going to get some nice, I dare I say human drama, even though they're not human, but you're going to get to see these people trying to interact with other friends and or people within this kind of genre, and it's them dealing with the day-to-day life of being whatever they are. And I thought that's kind of a nice twist on the whole zombie story for me.
I love that the vampires that we've seen so far seem to be like almost like sorority chicks.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're like the mean girls. It's from that kind of premise in this whole thing. So there's like different factions, and the different factions each have their own unique style and personality to them. There's a lot of flavor in this series. And I love that even, just not just talking about the zombies and the vampires and the ghosts, I love that there's also the twist, and werewolves. I like that there's also the twist, though, that there's a human supporting cast, like people that work with Gwen, who we're seeing slowly developed and fleshed out in this series as well. So there's quite a bit, and like I mentioned, the quote-unquote bad guys who are hunting down supernatural characters. And I understand why they're hunting down, obviously, the vampires. How are they going to feel about Gwen and the ghost? Because there's got to come a point where that's going to come to a head, right? Are they going to are they going to team up with them, or is it going to turn out, maybe I'm assuming too much, these are bad guys?
Yeah, it's one of those things that's, kind of hit it on the head, the nail on the head there. Right now, we're making generalizations, and who knows where this is going to go. I can honestly see this thing doing a nice spin, just the way, what we've seen so far, just the way they're working it. I could see a complete 180, within a couple issues, and who knows where this will go. It's something that I like about this, that I don't see where it's going, there's a lot of room for, okay, we could get this twist here, we could get it zig this way, kind of like the unknown going into it is something I'm really enjoying about this.
It looks like Chris Robertson's the name of the writer, Chris Robertson, and just wanted to shout him out, because this is really a cool book. Todd Klein's on letters, Angela Ruffino is the associate editor, Shelley Bond is the editor, and Robertson and Allred are the creators on this one. And the variant cover for this series was done by Darwin Cook. But it's really, just a interesting kickoff to a series where the art drew me in, but the story is just way cool, or way keen. I think when I think of Michael Allred's art, it's like keen, it's like there's something, there's pizzazz to that artwork.
Groovy. It's groovy.
Yeah, it's that kind of style, and I love it. I just, because he's got a flavor that you don't. It's his own unique style, and I really like when I pick up a Michael Allred book that I get that. You remember when we guested on a podcast doing Madman. So did you realize it was the same artist?
Not initially. I read it, I'm like, this art style's similar. Where have I seen it? And as I'm going through, then finally I was like, let me just wiki it. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, now I remember. So it was literally, I tell you, this thing kind of just flew right past my radar, and I can't believe I missed a zombie story, because I dig zombie stories, but I don't even know what I was thinking when I didn't initially pick this thing up.
Now, you want to talk about American Vampire?
Oh, definitely want to talk American Vampire. This is another one that normally I'm a purist on the vampire mythos. So when people start tweaking it, I do get a little bit, oh, come on. But the reason I love the tweaks they did in this story is they're making a character unique to the vampires in the story. It's not just an overall, let's change the vampire mythos. You have your traditional classic vampires in there, but you have these other characters who aren't exactly how things are. They're a little bit different. And why are they different? Well, maybe it's evolution of vampires. Maybe it's something we haven't seen yet. It's something that's building and growing throughout this first story arc that I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. I like this. And, just the way they're developing the current story arcs, we're seeing life for a vampire in 1925 and life for a vampire in 1909 in two separate story arcs.
1880. Actually, that Bad Blood story arc in the back kicks off. It actually kicks off in 1880 and starts going on through. You're right; it does go into the 1900s, but it starts off at 1880. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to. I'm with your joy on this series because I didn't know. I picked it up because of Stephen King. It's a great example. You and I think approach these for different reasons, and I love that you picked these two books in particular to chat about because I approached based on the writer for one, and the fact that Stephen King was writing the backup, and I'm like, well, okay, it sounds like a cool premise, so let me follow it. The evolution part, I totally dig with you because I love that because they've evolved, there's resentment from the classic vampires who are like, they consider them maybe a threat, an abomination, maybe somewhere in the middle. And I'm going to be curious to see if all classic vampires feel this way as the series progresses. Or are we going to see perhaps further factioning of vampires due to these new creations? Where is this going to go? Are we going to see more like them appearing? Are they the only evolution? I don't know. It's a cool series, but you're talking about that 1880. The Stephen King backup in the back is purely going back to the roots and saying this is where this other vampire, this lead not really lead vampire, he's a supporting vampire in the beginning story, but because he's the one that turned the girl in the beginning story, we're getting his story in the back. And going way back to 1880 straight on through. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off on there. This is another one. I'm with you. It's just a great series. What else?
Oh, yeah. Amen. I tell you, it's Skinner Sweet is the one guy's character. And I love the fact that and I got to echo your sentiment on Stephen King. Stephen King's writing this guy's, backup, his origin story. And I think that's a neat way to do it in this, where we have the quote-unquote main storyline that's currently going on, and then you have this backup written by Stephen King that shows his origin. It's another, just, again, really nice way they're approaching this. It's got a different look to it. It's got a different feel to it. And this is one of those times where they're tweaking the vampire mythos that I'm actually glad they're doing. I'm enjoying the changes they're making into this, and I want to see what happens in present day. I want to see how far this story is going to take it. Are they going to make it to modern times? Is it going to stay, earlier times? Is it going to be something that over, like 50 issues is it going to take to get into the 2000s or something? That's where I'm really curious as to see where it's going. It's kind of like with Madame Xanadu, how we see her pop up in different time periods, throughout her story. I'm wondering if they're going to do something similar with American Vampire, going through the different vampires in the different time periods.
That's interesting. It's funny. I could see it going either way, and I would enjoy it either way. I would enjoy either a slow progression to modern day, where we get to see some really fleshed out stories in the past, because I do like stories that are set out of time. I'm curious to see if this series, after the Stephen King arc is done, I'm assuming that he's on for a limited amount of time, because I know that this story that he's doing in the back right now is a limited portion of it. I'm going to be curious to see if it goes to then full issues where it's just Scott Snyder's story, or if we're going to continue to have the main story and then maybe Scott Snyder will do a backup, or maybe they'll have somebody else do a backup. I'm curious to see how this all plays out all the way through, or maybe we'll get more Stephen King coming back in the future. I hope. I'm really digging this. I like the premise that you get one story in the front and a story in the back. I've been a fan of backups anyway. I've talked about those, but in this particular case, the backup is so essential to fleshing out. It plays to Stephen King's strengths, because Stephen King, as far as character development and really fleshing out and making characters seem three-dimensional to the point where tiny, minute details about them, is really what he's all about. Then he totally messes with you. After we get to that. And I'm digging that about this, because the character you're mentioning is definitely one that we're seeing that fleshing out of the character. And this series is 3 issues in now, I believe. I don't think issue 4 has come out yet. Am I correct?
Yeah, not yet.
Okay. So it's an easy jumping on point right now for those of you that maybe passed it up to grab the first issue, see if it's for you, and then grab the other 2 issues and then really kind of jump on board and enjoy it. Your sentiments earlier when you were talking about iZombie, American Vampire is also in the same place for me. It's up there with Sweet Tooth as well as books from Vertigo right now that I would not switch to trade. I really like reading them monthly. Madame Xanadu is in that ballpark as well. Up there before Fables, Jack of Fables. There's a number of Vertigo titles right now that I was thinking, could I switch them to trade? I can't. They're just too good. The serialized storytelling in them just is something I'm eating up, and it's great to be able to jump on board at the beginning. I think that's probably something you're enjoying as well. We don't have to go and get like trades to get involved in the story. These are series launching right now. Or a few months in, and it's real easy for everybody to get access to them. I'd love, actually, for any of our listeners, I'd love you to call in. What Vertigo books are you reading? Which ones are, grabbing you? Because we don't always get a chance to talk as much Vertigo as I would like. I think it's just a wonderful line. Is anybody reading the crime books? I happen to be a big fan of those Vertigo crime hardcovers. I'm behind on them as far as in being caught up reading them, but I've been collecting them. The ones that I've read, I've really enjoyed. I love that each one is a different story. So you don't have to pick up any, like you can grab the current one out, and that can be your jumping on point to reading Vertigo crime books because they're not interconnected in any way. So it's kind of nice. I like Vertigo original graphic novels in general. Do you pick up any of those, Jim, the hardcovers or anything, or do you kind of pick and choose, or what do you, or do you just grab like some of these books now? Where are you at?
I'm picking up some of the hardcovers and some of the crime novels and just the different those Vertigo graphic novels that come out. It is something that when we first started doing the show, I wasn't doing it, and I was like, I don't know, and I was just sticking. I was really being just tight on the DCU only, and it was I'm drawing a blank on the name now. The Baghdad one, with tigers.
Tigers in Baghdad. You're talking about the hardcovers?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. That was the one done by Brian K. Vaughan. Hang on.
Yeah.
I was so drawing a blank. I had to look it up because, we just kind of jumped to that. Pride of Baghdad. And that was, I believe, the artist was Cafu on that one, I'm thinking. That Pride of Baghdad. Just a gorgeous... No, I'm sorry, it was Nico Henrikon. And it's Nico, I believe, Henrikon. Pride of Baghdad, very gorgeous original. Was that your first real original Vertigo hardcover you grabbed?
Yeah, that was the thing that pulled me into seeing just how cool some of those stories are, because it was another one where I didn't get it when it first came out. I was like, I don't know. Talking lions, I don't know. And I didn't really think about it, and then you were talking about how awesome it was. I was like, I can check it out. And we were at, I can't think of which con we were at, but I was kind of like just doing a little window shopping and just flipping through it. And I started, just sitting there reading and going, wow, this is outstanding. And, right then and there bought it. And from then on, whenever these things come out, I take a look at it, then I take a second look again, going, and I keep Pride of Baghdad in the back of my head, saying, remember that was something that you didn't pick up initially, and you really liked it. So I give these things a shot now, and it's one of the things I'm really glad about DCBS with the discounted pricing, because that allows me to keep picking up stuff that I wouldn't normally get.
I just picked up in trade The Alcoholic, which was an original hardcover. I hadn't picked it up. It was another one that I heard good things about, and I haven't had a chance to read it. It's actually one of my summer reading books, that I've got set aside. I've read David Lapham's Silverfish, which was really, really good, and Fables 1001 Nights of Snowfall, which it predates the Fable story in the current book. So anybody that wants to read a it's self-contained. You don't need to read anything else in order to enjoy that. It's a gorgeous Fables hardcover. And I've talked about it on the show before, but it is one that, I can't recommend enough. And those crime books I'm really enjoying. I'm behind on them in the sense that I've been collecting them gradually and, reading them as I can, but every one of them there's a Hellblazer one, which was fantastic. I'm drawing a blank on the name right now, but there's ones that are completely not connected at all with the other Vertigo titles. But then that Hellblazer one is really, really slick as well. It's he's on a game show. It's the whole premise of the story is that he's on this game show, and I'll put the link to the actual name of it in the show notes. But he's on this. It's kind of like a Big Brother type of thing, but it goes horribly wrong the way only a John Constantine story can. And it's really, this type of stuff is really great. They're a nice breather from, I love superhero books, but, they're a nice kind of change up from that. And I just think that they're really cool. So I'm glad you brought up some Vertigo stuff because we haven't really talked about that stuff in a while. Can we talk really quick about that DC Universe Legacies book? Because it's not in continuity in the sense that it's affecting what's currently going on, but it's an anniversary release, and this DC Universe Legacies #1 is following the tale of two boys and showing us how mystery men inspired people around them. It was a very cool kickoff to like this examination of the history of the DC Universe. And during a hard time, the boys are trying to make money. Jimmy is leading his friend Paulie into situations where they are collection of protection or tribute money from area businessmen. When a tribute is unable to be paid, a nice old man is hurt, and this brings the Crimson Avenger down on them. And Paulie's this interesting character because he really is meant to be our eyes into this sense of wonder of the early days of costume heroes. And the feel and tone is very much like early Golden Age, and I give the creative team credit for a very cool modern storytelling, but that keeps the same flavor and tone that I remember when the first issue of JSA kicked off. So it like feels classic, yet at the same time feels today, if that makes any sense. It's very modern, yet classic. Paulie winds up following Jimmy again into a liquor racket, and at this point we see him like voicing his concern over illegal activities they're getting involved in. I love this line. There is no land beyond the law where tyrants rule with unshakable power. It's a dream from which the evil wake to face their fate, their terrifying hour. And it's from the Sandman. And I'm just like, ugh. I'm like, ugh. It's good stuff. You know, and I love that kind of feel where you can see these kids like looking up. This is new to them. These people, these characters, there's something that changes the status quo. And we see, you know, how it's funny how we were talking in JLA Avengers, how, you know, what the DC characters have brought to the universe and how they almost have this like godlike effect on the universe. And you get to kind of see the roots of where that came from and how dark things were before mystery men came onto the scenes. And there were crime rackets and things like that they were dealing with. It was cool. It was really cool.
Yeah, I love seeing, as you talk about just being the eyes into there, and it gets me thinking just what if, you know, that great question that I always love to go into when we get started with comics, what if I lived back there? What if I could do stuff like that? You know, what if even if not even having superhuman powers, what if you could somehow be the costume Avenger, be that costume hero, that vigilante, you know, the masked vigilante who fights for truth, justice, and whatnot, that kind of deal. That I don't know, when I read stories that are supposed to take place in the past and you just see these eras of the olden days, I'm like, dang, I want to be that. I want to do that kind of stuff. And it's, you know, it's part of some of the greatest things about the stories that it takes you, you know, just into another place of mind and just, you know, another, not even just, you know, back to your childhood, even just not even my childhood, a childhood back then is kind of just a cool part of the story.
The Spectre backup, where we see reporters giving us the public view of these events. They're trying to discover the truth about mystery men and the stories surrounding them. My favorite segment was when we see the recap of the Spectre versus the supernatural Shadow, where the onlookers say that he grew to giant sizes to stop this creature. And these reporters try to dispel it as being a Zatara-like magic illusion put together using a sheet. Mm-hmm. And there was that cool bit back there of Dr. Fate saving Inza, his future wife. They try to dispel his use of power as illusion as well, yet they are analyzing the burn marks on the wall. Don't mess with Fate's lady, though, because Haldane found out the hard way. Such a cool bit. I really liked it, because there was this sense of power to these characters. That's what I meant. It did feel very much, we've read Golden Age stories on the show earlier on, and it did feel like Golden Age, yet I totally was in today mode. Like these stories, I would love to see this set in this era as a monthly series. I would love to read this monthly as a regular book set in the Golden Age.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
And I'm so glad they're releasing this 10-issue series as a celebration of various eras of the DC Universe storytelling. I'm hoping that we get this same thematic, which I'm guessing we're going to, elements as with each era, where, you know, it feels very much rooted in that era, yet it feels modern as well. Because I think there's a lot of cool tricks you can do to pull that off. The balance there is very tricky, and they're really pulling it off. This was really dynamite, and it was, like I said, I enjoyed the issue so much that at the end I was like, but I want to see more in this era. This was cool. So, and that to me is a job well done. Can we talk a little Legion of Superheroes #1?
Oh, definitely.
I loved the Time Institute bit where they're excited to learn the past events of Flashpoint because so many fans were asking for details at conventions. And there's like cool satire, but also a true statement of what you'd want to do in a world where superheroes really exists. Who wouldn't want to look back in history and see the best events in the life of superpowered beings? Professor Lee at the Time Institute talks about the hair on her arms standing on end when she gave a warning in the Legion of Three Worlds. Is this the idea that she is time sensitive, or am I reading too much into that? How did you take that?
I didn't really take it as time sensitive. I took it more as just she's got a knowledge, and no, not even a knowledge, just that kind of forebodingness where you have that she's not just a pure academic, where it's only the pursuit of knowledge. It's the kind of like that, the blinders on. She's not that kind of person. She is the overall picture. She's got, just a glimpse into, kind of like that gut feeling. So I don't know, as I'm talking, I'm kind of talking myself, into believing that there may be something a little bit more about her connection. I don't know. I kind of took it as I took it that she was not like a meta or anything like that. It was just one of those things where she had her feet firmly on the ground. She knew what, there's some stuff you don't want to go to. You don't want to have all of the knowledge of the universe. If you see creation, if you see all these things that we're never meant to see, there is a level to what you should pursue and what you should know. It's a respect for the power that's out there.
I guess I guess is probably my watching Doctor Who for years has done this. There's been times in Doctor Who, and actually in the current series, where they explore this idea that because people travel with the Doctor, the way they see time is affected. It's not on the same level that a Time Lord's would be, or like a meta would be. But because they have, in her case, because she's explored and experimented and that type of thing, that somehow now that has on some level connected her in a way. Kind of like what we see with Rip Hunter, for example, where Rip Hunter isn't necessarily a meta, but because he's been so attuned to it, he's kind of got a little edge, a little something, if that makes sense, that like an average layman wouldn't have and wouldn't be aware of in that situation. So I don't know that, she could be a meta, but I don't know that I was necessarily thinking that had to be the conclusion, but that there is something because she has been exploring this so much, she's just more intuitive. Kind of, you were kind of hitting on that a little bit as far as there is something there. It's either mental or something more. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting to me, and it was such a tiny little thing. But I'm like, wow, this made me think. So I think that's a testament to the series in the sense that I was into the whole big events that were going on in the issue, but I was also into the character development, and there was a lot of supporting cast in this that was being developed that I was like, wow, okay, that's intriguing and interesting. Some of them won't be around again for various reasons, but the Time Institute and other alien-led facilities are being removed from Earth due to the xenophobia present in the John storytelling. And I give Levitz a ton of credit for continuing where this left off as he moves forward. At this point, there has been some pretty established continuity for this band of Legionnaires. And yet there's so much to explore. I'm so ready to see more storytelling where they affect the future. In the future. The time bubbles that we have seen in the past and currently in use by Booster and Rip are being modified in this time to be kind of a screen of sorts, where they can look back on time. I always liked that. Actually, one of my favorite classic Doctor Who's, going all the way back to the old black and whites with William Hartnell, is he had a time screen in his TARDIS where he could see events happening elsewhere. And that was always kind of a neat thing. The destruction of the moon of Titan was a wow moment for me, as she heard the screams of her people. Imagine being a telepath. And she has to, we get to see that bit where she has that secret place where she doesn't have to guard her thoughts. It would be hard living among telepaths. And not only living among telepaths because they can hear your thoughts, but because you're always going to be hearing theirs and everybody else's. This idea that her journal area was a room where she could let go and open up, and the control and focus that must be maintained at all times must be difficult. I'm assuming that she not only has to block out her own thoughts, but those of others. Kind of like what we've seen in like X-Men story, for example, with characters like Jean Grey and stuff like that, how you've got to really gain control of that, otherwise it will overwhelm you and overtake you. So I really loved this exploration, and I've never seen, and I don't know, this might be a part of Legion history, this secret place that she had, but this was my first exposure to it, and I really loved that concept that this would be a place. So that was blown up now, so does she have an option to even do that anymore? Because that's gone. What does that mean? How much has been lost for her besides the people? And I don't want to say just the people, because obviously losing that moon that's her home. And that area means so much to her. Not only did she lose that, but she lost something. She lost her home in a traditional sense, in the sense like if your house burns down and you lose all your memories and all of your keepsakes and all of those special things that you've had throughout your life, that's what that room was that she lost. So it's a loss on so many different levels for her. And I really loved that development preceded this. Levitz didn't rely on the fact that the readers of this book would be longtime Legion fans. Levitz relied on the fact that this was something that if I develop it in this way, I can give a hook for longtime readers, but also develop the character of Saturn Girl enough that this event is going to emotionally affect new readers as well. I really appreciated that, because that really shows to me a writer who's a master of his craft and looking at a large audience for this book. And that's something where if you aren't a Legion reader, never have read Legion before, you can really pick up Legion of the Superheroes #1 and jump right on board. He gives you everything in this issue that you need. You don't need back history. You're probably going to want to read more after this, because I know I do. Because these things that, with Saturn, I'm curious as to be now. Has this ever happened before? I am so Legion happy right now that I want to read everything. I'm like a Legion sponge. When I go to cons, Legion is what I seek out now, because I've read broken runs throughout the years, but the stuff we've been reading in particular for the show has gotten me, just whetted an appetite for the history of these characters and where they came from, and what events they've gone through and what the drama in their life's been like.
For me, one of the things I really digged about I don't want to say I digged about the planet being destroyed, was I got to see its birth in the ending of the Mon-El stories in Action Comics, where we saw him putting the last of the cities down. We actually saw the birth of these people when the city first got put on Titan. So for me, it was kind of a neat thing seeing its birth, and then a couple weeks later, I see its death, and I was like, wow, that's just something that I'm wondering if they planned that, if they're really laying down the groundwork to do that whole thing. Is it something that kind of just flowed through, or where it came from? That was something that kind of drew me into this, because I'm not a sponge. I won't say I'm not a sponge, but I'm definitely getting into the whole Legion, the concept behind who the Legion are, what they're doing, and it's something that I want more information on who these people are. And it's funny, I love the fact that they give you the name of who the Legionnaire is, because I'm still learning them. I still call them by different names sometimes, whether it's Lightning Lass, who's a boy, who's a man, who's a this and whatnot. So I do like seeing those little icons there, but I've never felt like I was lost in reading these stuff. And I think that is a testament, because you mentioned how whether there's nods to the longtime readers, there's new readers like me, and this is just something that's going to keep building on and growing what is the Legion.
You were talking about the stuff that was going on in War of the Superman and Adventure Comics. It was funny. Mark posted on the forum, and I thought this was worth mentioning, because obviously if Heath felt it was that way, it's something where maybe other people might have been confused by what I was saying on the last episode. We talked about this stuff. What I've liked so much about the storytelling set in present day DC Universe is the fact that they recognize, like when you mentioned that we got to see the birth of that moon in this whole storytelling with Brainiac. We got to see, I liked the fact that we got to see with Mon-El, we saw him do a whole bunch in present day, but when they put him back in the Phantom Zone, it was set up in such a way that all the Legion stories that were before still happened, and it didn't contradict anything. It's a brand new story about Mon-El, but it didn't contradict anything that's been present throughout Legion history. I love that. You didn't have to do that, because you could have just said, well, we got a new continuity here, this is what's happening, and because of all these crises and stuff, it's okay that this happened. They didn't need to do that. They very simply put us in a place where everything that we saw from the Legion predates what we've seen in all the Legion stories leading up to there. So longtime Legion fans that have been reading for years can go, wow, okay, this, these events actually happened. And I think that's just clever. I don't mind if they change continuity and stuff like that if they need to because it's for a good story. But if you don't need to, there's something I think clever to throwing in a little hook to say, not only do we not need to change continuity, but look at this neat, handy-dandy way in a brand new story. I can tie into that all continuity and say, for old-time fans, this really happened. You know what I mean? I think that's neat. I think it's, I don't think you always have to do that, but when it does, it's something that I like to note because I appreciate when writers have, we'll take a panel or two just to do something like that because it just makes me giddy that those stories all of a sudden happen again. It's why, the people talk about the convoluted Hawkman origin and stuff all the time. I think it's one of the things that I appreciated about going back to his roots and using the reincarnation is the fact that means all those stories happen as well. I want to talk about Earthman a little bit.
Oh, God, yeah.
He's not only being approached to be a Legionnaire, to keep the fragile peace, because, you got to think with all the events that have happened in the xenophobia that's been on Earth, they're at a point right now where the Legion has a fragile peace on Earth. A lot of the support pieces that were on Earth, like the Time Institute and stuff like that, were actually taken off of Earth and went boom on Titan because of the xenophobia. So now all of a sudden they're saying, okay, you want to keep this peace, make Earthman a Legionnaire. And this base on Earth, the only way to keep this stuff is he's being approached also by this new Mogo. So you got Earthman, they've given him a Legion ring. Now this new Mogo type character that we get to see that's reinvigorating the core has approached Earthman. My question is, what does this mean for Ion? Ion's there, and is he still going to be a Green Lantern? Is he still going to be powered as a Green Lantern? Because it seemed like that was taken from him, right? Isn't that
No. I took it that the Mogo 2.0 took one of the other rings that were sitting there and charged it. He never lost his powers. I don't see him as, he's still who he is. And it's just kind of, as you said, it's starting the recruitment process all over again for the Green Lantern Corps. I thought that was a really nice little kind of, well, it was nice, but it was odd. Because you think about it, the main premise behind the Green Lantern Corps is you can overcome great fear. And I never took Earthman as being able to overcome that fear. I always saw him in the other stories as being that scared little boy with a lot of power backing him up. And I never saw him as just that strong willpower. Because you think about when he actually finally got taken down by the Legion, and by Legion and by Clark and all the various people working together against him, I want to say it was his personal inner weakness that cost him the victory. He wasn't as focused. He wasn't as powerful as someone like Clark or like some of the Legionnaires. So I was kind of thrown by his being offered a ring. Now, I thought it's a neat story, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where this is going, but I'm definitely wondering if we're going to get more of a fleshing out. Is this a changing of the Green Lantern Corps? Is there going to be something different, that's being brought about because of these massive cosmic changes where, that we had in that Time Institute? Where's this going to lead? And that's something I'm like, wow, we're not just getting a Legion story, we're getting a Green Lantern story as well.
What other ring did you see this creature taking? Because if you look at the sequence, it says, you, Sodam Yat, and he says, yes, but required an appropriate ring now. And he says, whatever you aren't taking my ring. And he says, this ring is suitable. Diogene, go. Sodam Yat's hand, this brilliant flash of light, and then we don't see that creature again until he pops up with Earthman. You think Sodam Yat still has a ring then, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I think
because what ring did he take? There was no other ring there.
Yeah, look on the ground. There's all those rings that were surrounding Sodam Yat. You follow the energy band, he goes down.
Okay, so it's one of the rings that would look like dead rings on the ground?
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're saying that energy that's coming out from him, he's taking that ring, and Sodam Yat still has a ring. So we're going to see Sodam Yat versus Earthman.
Yeah, if you
I totally read that differently. I'm glad you said that because I went back and looked now, and you're 100% correct. I see it coming out of the creature is the beam right over to the pile of rings. I totally did not read that way. That's cool.
Yeah, that's what this ring's suitable. He grabbed the other one. So,
right.
That's kind of neat.
When he was saying this ring's suitable, I was reading it that he meant Sodam Yat's ring. Because we see on Oa Sodam Yat at the end crying. Mm-hmm. So I guess I just took that but he's crying because of the death of the moon, right?
The death of the moon, unknown shakeability, what's going on. Not 100% certain there.
Well, because it's right after the death of the moon, and you see like 9 panels all having what looks like a reflection on the whole thing.
Yeah, kind of everybody was affected. Everybody's kind of mourning what actually happened because that's a huge tragedy.
This is really cool. I'm really enjoying this like exploration of these because it really is like I'm with you in the sense that because of my history of the Legionnaires, this is kind of new to me. Just in the sense that I haven't read every Legion story, so I feel like I'm jumping on these characters after having been away from them a long time. I mean, I was. All the stuff that we've seen with the squad that was sent to present day, I've been following, and obviously Jeff John's Legion of Three Worlds. But really, before that, it was Mark Wade's Legion, which is a different group. So this really is ground floor for you and me in a very similar way, in the sense that I haven't read these Legionnaires for a long time, and I'm just really excited to follow this one.
Question for you and for other longtime Legion fans: with Saturn Girl and her 2 boys that kind of disappear in the end there. Now, these are the same boys who in the previous story arc, the Great Darkness Saga, one of them got snatched away, correct?
That's the way I'm taking it.
Okay.
I'm not, and actually I'm with you, any of our listeners, if you can kind of clarify that from your Legion history, what is going on with them, either call in our voicemail or shoot us an email, I would love to know that as well. Because I was just assuming that was the case, but I'm glad you mentioned that because I really did just assume that and kind of move on, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Jim, The Shield #9, can we talk a little bit about that? Because this book, it's only got one more issue afterwards, and I just want to do a quick little shout-out to it, because I just am continuing to love this. The risk of nuclear incident in Happy Harbor, the great classic jail, because JSA has been borrowing that area, brings the JSA into the Shield. And I love the sense of foreboding throughout with the character. He just felt on instinct that something was going to go wrong. Higgins and the JSA come up with a plan to try and defuse all of these bombs at once, and there's just way too many of them, and the way that they're set is if you defuse one, the rest will go off. So it's not an issue of, like, can we send the flash around to defuse them all? He's got to literally be defusing all of them at the same time, so that doesn't work. So how do you make this happen? Unfortunately, the Nazis, Baron Gestapo, and the arms dealer are witnessed by a former soldier who escalates events and causes their covert op to go wrong. And I love how these Nazis that we're seeing in the current JSA book, they've caused that alternate timeline, are appearing here in present day. We're seeing that these are villains now that are taking a more prominent role in the DC universe, and it makes sense to have them in a JSA story with the Shield right now. There's this cool cliffhanger, like where the heroes are at standstill. If they make a move, Happy Harbor is destroyed. And I loved the whole layout of the JSA members, how their tentative relationship with the Shield, but then how the events and circumstances have kind of pulled them to work together. And I love the bit with, we always really enjoy when technology is confronted by Mr. T's, sorry, I'm thinking of A-Team, the T-Spears from Mr. Terrific. I pity the fool. But Mr. Terrific's T-Spears, that's why I've got the T on the brain, the T-Spears, keep him shielded and invisible to technology. Well, I loved how they had to be adjusted and like kind of assimilated to a certain extent by the Shield so he could see him to make this op work. I just, tiny details that work for me, and this series is just, wonderful with them. I am so sad that there's only one more issue 10, because I have really adored this series all the way through.
I really digged Howling Mad Murdoch in the issue. I thought he just really captivated, and it was just something, I was like, yeah, Murdoch, kicking butt.
I liked that nobody was killed because Hannibal wouldn't let that happen. It was great,
Fire 1,000 rounds and not hit a single person.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I already picked on myself about the whole A-Team thing, but the Fox backup. You train to get revenge, but what happens when that training brings you peace? What drives you to continue to be a vigilante? The truth is nothing. You'd want a normal life. You'd achieved closure, so you'd want to move on. But his girl is murdered in the cliffhanger. My question is, and this is where I think the cliffhanger is really interesting. Was it the evil cartel that he had been shutting down that did this? Or was it those that seem to be helping him that want him to remain the Fox? Would they go to those lengths in order to keep him in the game? I loved that twist at the end because I'm convinced now that his so-called allies did this to him.
Oh God, yeah. I'm not guessing. That's what I'm certain that's what it has to be. Just because they have to give him the turmoil, they have to do so. He needs the motivation. Now here it is. Here's your motivation. boom, now you have to avenge her. If you hadn't been associated with us, she would still be alive, kind of deal. It's, I'm 100% thinking that's what it's got to be.
I love this idea, though, that he achieved inner peace. And what would you do then? Well, the life of vigilante, we've talked about on the show before, is not a glamorous life. It looks cool, when you're a kid and you throw on a cape and run around your backyard. But when you really think about how hard it would be to keep two identities, or to give up a normal identity to then totally delve into this lifestyle, how much you're really giving up. The life of a vigilante is a life of sacrifice on some level, either for an ideal or for revenge. And it is interesting to see that kind of twist. And I really, really liked that.
Yeah, definitely. It was a nice little, like, oh my God, that's a cool idea. All right. I don't think I've ever remembered seeing or even hearing about that type of, twist on a story arc, in any other comic.
Magog number 9, I'm going to talk about really quick. I am liking this concept that Magog's gift of powers comes at a price. Is he still human? Is there something else inside him? Is he still David? And if so, will this other entity take over? Will it win? Or will he? He keeps running into quote-unquote family members, Magog's family, who are assuming the roles of humans to kind of infiltrate and move their own agenda on Earth. And this is going to come to a head. Ultimately, will the rest of the DC universe be aware of it? Or will Magog still be handling this on a covert manner? That has me interested. Do you think, Jim, that Magog is doomed to the future as the bad guy that seems to be inevitable? Do you think that is something he's stuck with? Or do you think there is a possibility we're going to see that time is something that can be changed, and we're going to see Magog beat this? What do you think? Or do you think which way do you think it's going to go? Do you have any speculation?
I say never underestimate a Marine. And there's just that he is a Marine, heart, through and through. And that's something that I see him fighting it, and I actually see him beating it. Now, he's not going to be your cookie-cutter Superman superhero, but he's not going to be this force of destruction. And had you asked me this earlier, in the series, I'd say, you know what? We may get this title may shift into a darker place. I'm actually thinking we're going to see Magog beat this. We're going to see David beat this. Now, the question is, where will that take him? What will happen to him, like power-wise, whoever he is wise? But I think we're going to see David emerge out of this, because right now I don't know how much of David's in there. I think we're seeing more of this alien entity, this foreign creature that is calling and running the show. It's that symbiotic relationship where either one's just now getting aware of the other one's presence. I don't think we're going to see split personality type deal, but I think we're going to definitely see a shift and a change in who he is and how he starts thinking.
Yeah, his team-ups with the Shield, I just want to mention, are some of my favorite. I really like how that all played out in all of this. They seem to be characters, and I hope that with the Shield ending and going to Mighty Crusaders, that we do get stories with the Shield appearing more in Magog. I don't want it necessarily doesn't have to be every month, but there is something very natural about these two characters teaming up and a relationship being built there. So I do hope to see more of these characters together, because their differences and their similarities are becoming much more apparent. And I see an interesting friendship where these two can buddy cop it and really play off of each other's strengths, because I do think respect's growing.
Definitely, there's something growing there. I don't know if we'll ever see friendship between the two of them. Mm-hmm. There's definitely going to be a respect for what each one can give and what each one can bring to the table. But it's I like how we are definitely seeing two different types of soldiers. They're two solid soldiers, but they are looking at life. They're dealing with things a little bit differently. And to be honest, it's a good comparison with the Army and with the Marine Corps. It's kind of a nice... I'm glad to see that it is two different branches of the military, two different backgrounds, two different training, and we're seeing that out of the people who are involved with this. I thought that is just really excellent writing, and definitely... You could take any hero that's quote-unquote military background and you can make them a cookie cutter and similar with each other. They're not doing that here. They're giving each one of them their own little personal individuality, and I think that's a great thing. I love seeing these two together. And I actually wouldn't even have an issue if they were to somehow shift things and maybe make a military-type team where they have various military-oriented heroes working together, because they can take some of these titles that maybe aren't doing so well, and you can actually very easily merge them into a cohesive, unit where the basic premises behind it is they have a military background. Maybe they're government sponsored, maybe they're all formerly government sponsored, and now they're stepping out on their own kind of deal. I think that's something I would really like to see, kind of a strike force type mentality.
Can we talk about JSA All Stars real quick, number 7? Because actually, speaking of Magog, it's funny. I'm enjoying Magog so much in his own series now, and it's funny how his changing from JSA All Stars to just being in Magog, I think has strengthened my love for the character, because I didn't like him leading the JSA All Stars. I love that the series played off of that, how he just didn't fit, and it played off of our emotions of him not fitting, and how it got to the point where I wanted to see him expelled from the team. I wanted to see him go. And now reading him in his own book, I've become really attached to Magog because of the way it played out. I thought it played out very well in JSA All Stars. I thought it was a strength in how it went there. It really was. I thought it was bold to put that in our face in All Stars. And it's funny how something like that has endeared the character to me. And he's kind of becoming endeared to me the way Azrael was. Like, by the time he was done as Asbats, I so wanted to see his butt kicked by Bruce. But then I grew to like him when he went into his own series, Azrael, and we got to see him kind of rebuild his life. We're seeing that with David and Magog. Now in JSA All Stars, we're seeing this team here, and number 7 was like, I was assuming all along, I don't know if you were, that Damage wasn't done. Like, we were going to see Damage back.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I was assuming that. I guess I just assumed, he died in, the Blackest Night thing. And I was like, oh, this, there's got to be a way they're going to bring him back, right? And I knew that there was only 12 that came back. I guess there was a part of me that I guess I was in denial. Until I saw the cover of this issue, I'm like, oh no, they did not. He's gone. He's really gone. And
he's dead.
You know what I really liked about this? A character who I don't feel I've gotten to know very well is Judo Master. And I felt that this was a really good chance for us to get to know her as a person. And I thought this was a really good emotional issue with this, because she's trying to find the words to say. She's trying to move on and deal with that. And not only do we get to know her through this, but we get to see King Chimera through the whole thing, kind of have interactions with her and get to see his softer side, which is something that I really enjoyed with him as well. But this, it's, to me, this team is growing on me. We're getting to see much more of what I consider to be a JSA team, but yet it feels very different than the Justice Society of America book. And I'm really liking that. Cyclone in this I thought was fantastic. But it really is, this is a spotlight issue, appropriately so, for Judo Master and her interactions with the other team. We get to see her with Sand as well. And I don't know, do you have a favorite character on the All-Stars right now? One that you're really digging?
Well, I've always digged Cyclone. I thought she's just, there's something about her that I was just like, yeah, I want more story behind her. And Judo Master is one that completely, I didn't think too much of her. And this issue really here was one of those really cool latching on moments. The King, I did not like him. I kind of was like, he needs to get smacked around a little bit, put him in the ring with Wildcat, let him knock some teeth out, change him around a little bit. But here we saw just this cool hero who wouldn't let his teammate just, throw her life away. That would, had she gone through with what her plan was, that would have completely just changed who she was, changed how she would fit in with the team, and that was just a really cool moment. Now, for me, though, I have to say, my favorite moment of this issue was at the opening, that 2-page spread where you see all the heroes at the funeral, and in the back row, you see Freddie and his wife. I thought that was absolutely wonderful. I was sitting there, and it was something I didn't even notice first time through. It was on my second read-through. I was like, is that Freddie? Oh my God, he drew himself. Then I see next, I'm like, I think that's his wife. Oh my God, that's awesome.
That is really cool. I like that element too. It was something that this series has really, really, a lot of the criticisms I've read about this series have been that it didn't feel enough JSA and things like that. To me, I think it has grown into a series that feels so much JSA now because of how the team, it didn't fit JSA before, and they slowly altered and changed and changed their tactics, changed membership, and all that to fit into a team that they were all more comfortable with. And we're seeing a balance here now that is just so interesting. Yet it still feels like a unique and different book. The message that Damage left, talking about World War II heroes going into battle and leaving a message like that, and seeing the tragedy that this guy's face was being repaired to a certain extent by Dr. Midnight, to the point where he was confident taking off his mask to show her, look at this. Look where I'm at now. Look at how much I've grown, and that, my being a part of this team, being a part of the JSA has now, given us an opportunity. She's seeing a loved lost. And just seeing, though, this cocky guy, this King Chimera, this character who many times is so unlikable, but we've seen him with Cyclone. We've seen the softer side of him, the more human side of him, that what you see on the surface, the face value of him, is something more. I'm really loving this book. I'm so glad there's 2 JSA books right now, because there's a lot of these characters. Like Judo Master is a great example of this series spotlighting her has so made me a fan of Judo Master. And I think that's what I'm digging, is a lot of these characters that haven't had a spotlight are getting it now. But yet we're not losing the team aspect. We don't have to have another mini series or a solo series or some kind of one shot or something like that to spotlight them. The teams have been pared down into 2 separate teams now, and we can spotlight them while keying in on their interactions with their teammates to show their growth as well, and to see this team fleshing together into something that's interesting. I like that it's a building of a team versus we're not seeing a team being deconstructed. We're seeing a team through these events becoming stronger together, if that makes sense. The Death of Damage isn't about JSA falling apart. It's about JSA All Stars coming together. Look at what this team's supporting each other. They're being here for each other. They're talking this death out, and it's actually bringing them closer together as a group. And it's something that I really find is working about this series. Plus, we're seeing characters like Dr. Milo returning from the Human Flame miniseries that was out there, the Final Crisis Aftermath run. I like seeing that Williams and Sturgis are bringing back that character again. It's a nice little Easter egg for those of us that have been reading their previous collaboration to see that back in this book. And that was something that made me smile. It was something that I was a part of this as well. So another Easter egg that I thought was pretty cool in this whole thing. And I don't know, it's a cool book, and I'm really digging it. And I like the backup, to see more of this adventure with Liberty Bell and her husband. I'm very curious to see what her joining the Justice League is going to mean for them, if anything. Although, I think at this point, the JSA teams, the creative teams I'm talking about, have pretty much so established that this marriage is going to last no matter what team they're on. And I hope that's the case, because I really quite like that. I like this exploration that they're married, but they have day jobs. Yeah. And that in the superhero universe, you just make that work. It just adds a nice little twist to their relationship. And it goes back to what I've said in previous podcasts. I don't want to see every character in the DC universe married. It's not necessary. But when you've got a couple like Hourman and Liberty Bell, or Jessie Quick, whatever name she's going to be going by now, married and making it work on 2 different teams, there's something to me, I think, that makes those characters unique, their relationships unique because of it. And I think this story right here, where we get to see them teaming up with 2 villains in this quest for these these artifacts, these books and things like that. It just, I don't know, it feels like a big adventure story. It's got, to me, this story feels a lot like Raiders of the Lost Ark, or Indiana Jones, in the sense that they're going through catacombs and tombs and searching for things. And I've liked the pulpy adventure feel of this story, and it feels very different than the main book, and I like it. I hope the backups continue with this and spotlight, when this particular story is done, spotlight other characters. Or I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't mind if it's Jessie Quick or Liberty Bell and Hourman ongoing that kind of shows us, when they're not with their respective teams, what their life is like. Because I honestly like the 2 characters. I would not be against their continuing adventures being the backup of JSA All Stars.
Amen on that. And it's funny, we keep throwing out Liberty Bell, Jessie Quick, because she's going to be going by both the names or just the one name and stopping the other. Do you personally have a preference as to what name she goes by?
I love her now. I don't care. You can call her late for dinner. I don't care. I really don't.
You can call her Ray, and you can call her Jay.
No, do you? I mean, you brought up the question. Do you have a preference?
I actually kind of do. And this is going to anger Flash fans, but I like her as the name Liberty Bell over Jesse Quick for some reason. And to be honest, I can't even give you a reason why. Just for some reason, I like Liberty Bell. I like just the symbolism and the structure that is kind of behind, just the bell and just that whole heroes fighting for truth, justice, yada yada kind of stuff. So I like Liberty Bell, but call her Jesse Quick, I'll be happy with that as well. Just the character is a great character, and I love seeing these two together. There's so many times when I'm reading this backup story, as I'm reading it, I'm singing the Indiana Jones theme. And I was like, da 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 da. It has just that great feel to it.
It visually just has a pulpy adventure feel, and I really liked it. It played out very well. And it was something, it's colorist is the friend of the show, David Barron, and I really there was something about it that I'm like, wow, I really just like the adventure feel of this book. It just kind of grabs me that way, and it really works. I'm with you in the slight edge to Liberty Bell, just because I'm a big fan of All Star Squadron, and going back to that kind of history and bringing that in is, I think, kind of cool. But I do like the character so much from the Flash days as well that they can't go wrong right now. It's just a fun book. Jim, before we go in, I'd like to talk a little bit about JSA, Chapter 4 of Fatherland. But before we talk about that, I'd like to announce that we have sponsors for the show, as we announced at the beginning and the end of the show, that sponsor us. But we are now sponsoring Colgate. It's something that I think it's long overdue. I would think with each issue of the comics that we've bought that have had those cardboard Colgate flyers that we might as well just come out and announce that Raging Bullets is now a sponsor of Colgate. Jim, do you have a favorite Colgate memory?
I am done with Colgate. I only brush my teeth with Crest now. Maybe even I'll go Aquafresh. I don't care.
Wow.
No Colgate in this house. They've angered me. They've reached the point of anger, and I'm going to rein in my my hatred for some of these things, just because I literally, the last time we talked about it, I was getting honest anger was coming out, and I didn't even realize I was doing it until you started reeling me back in. And as I even just start thinking about the stuff, I still have that anger. So I'm just going to let this go and move on to the next subject.
I didn't want you to stop. I was having so much fun hearing you just get so worked up. I thought, like, whoa. Because I really thought you'd, play along. But it was even funnier that you didn't. That was like the worst sponsorship spot ever. In anything.
There's sometimes that commercials anger me. And, this is one of those times where commercials have angered me. It was,
wow.
Yeah.
They really never angered me. I think the whole thing's funny because I keep having to pull out those Colgate flyers and stuff, and that was driving me nuts, but I wasn't angry about it. I love the passion that you're like, and I even get Aquafresh, which, you can slam to Aquafresh there, too. That's how bad you are, Colgate. You're one step below Aquafresh. Speaking of JSA, a book that we haven't been able to talk about it much recently is Justice Society of America. Bill Willingham, Jesus Marino, Jesse Delperdang with Ramos, and Marino on inks. Our friend Alan Pasalacqua on colors. This whole alternate storyline, alternate universe storyline, alternate future storyline has been really interesting to me because it's not, I'm like, how are they going to resolve this? Because this event where the Nazis have taken over, I mean, talk about a fleshed out world that we're seeing here. This whole bit that they've got this bubble that kind of takes away powers, and not takes away, it definitely takes away powers, and how they set up a trap for all of the spacefaring cosmic heroes, because we saw what happened when the Earthbound heroes came in. They were captured, including Superman. So I mean, these are characters, they took down the JLA and the JSA and all the heroes of the world. They're all captured in this camp. But not only that, cosmic heroes, the cosmic allies that have been through so many of these DC Universe stories, mounted this offensive to come in, and a trap was laid for them where they pulled back this bubble, this darkness engine, and then they kicked it back up full force so they would all fall to their deaths. And, I mean, it was just the suddenly depowered liberators fell from the sky in the thousands. The national papers trumpeted as the day of the green rain. And just to see the look on Terrific's face as he's crying there, just a visual moment there. Kilowog was one of those that died. And is that Tomar 2? I think it is. That we're seeing, a lot of these... a lot of the lanterns that we're used to there are falling to their deaths in this particular moment. And I was just like, whoa.
Oh, yeah, dude, that, I tell you, this has been a great story that is laying out. And from beginning of it, I kept asking myself, how are they going to change this? How can they get it back? Because we know they have to fix it, but how is the big question? Because you always have that time, is loose and it's locked into place. Is this a thread off of the timeline? Is this an alternate universe? Is this an alternate reality? Where is it going to get back, and how is it going to come back to the way it should be? Has always been a underlying thread going in the back of my head. But as we're getting that, we're seeing these great current stories going on. This is something that is just a story built on a story built on a story, and I'm just really just into this and loving just how they play out the villains, how they came to power, how they held on to the power. It's just the overall growth of everything, and I was just like, wow. This is some impressive stuff that I kind of was like, there was a lot of shock, going on when you see the villains win. But there was also just like wow, that's cool. I like this. This is a neat, I don't want as in I want to live in a world like this, but it's like as in I like where this is going and how they're playing it out. It's not just going to be a simple whitewash reboot. Oh, that was an alternate storyline. Now let's continue on with the real story. This is actually going to affect present society, present day, and we're going to see some different, something different come out of at the end of the story.
One of the things I like, too, is seeing the heroism of these heroes depowered. Seeing Superman or seeing Clark and Diana, fighting together, Dinah, Catwoman. You're seeing basically the who's who of the DC Universe in this story reacting to these events. And we see the death of a lot of these characters because of the fact that they're depowered. It's all about getting to the Darkness Engine because they want to put a stop to this. They want to undo this. They want to shut down the Nazis while they still can. Superman taking over that. I love that the spray paint cans. I assumed, I don't know about you, I assumed the spray paint cans were for the face shield of the suit, as a way to block visibility and gain an advantage. I had no idea he was going to get inside it and spray paint the S-shield on it and then use the suit to become Superman in the suit as a symbol. I loved that moment for him recognizing that if I can get inside one of these, if we can confiscate one of it, I can go out here and run out here and bring in, it really is a lot of him knowing what the S-shield brings. It's a lot of Batman coming in there too. Knowing that seeing that symbol running around is going to put a little intimidation. It shows the effect that Bruce has had on Clark and in the way he views, the criminals are a superstitious and cowardly lot. I loved that element of the whole thing too. It's a cool story. It's an event that's taking place in the JSA book. I love that. I love that, we talk about right now that there's all these great events going on, War of the Superman, there's great events going on in Wonder Woman, Batman's got his own events, there's events going on right now in Green Lantern, they've been going on, with Blackest Night building in, it's tied into this whole Brightest Day thing now and where that's all going. Brightest Day's going on, Flash is leading to its own events. That's cool. JSA, no exception. I'm a big fan of DC doing this because there's got to be something there. There's got to be other events going on other than the big, huge events. I like, for example, when I'm picking up this JSA book right now, I love that when I'm reading JSA, I don't have to worry about anything else that's going on in the DC universe right now. I can dig JSA. I'm looking forward to then coming after this. We see JLA coming together as a team. We're going to see a crossover between these two teams that at the end I think is really going to solidify for us who the JSA and who the JLA are in the DC universe, who these teams are going forward from here. I'm really looking forward to that spin out of the whole thing, that the team up right now is coming at a time where we're seeing the Justice League rebuilding itself. We're seeing the JSA has kind of been firming itself up as well. This is something that I'm just a big fan of right now. That it seems to be this is the year 2010 where we're getting our teams back. It's not about deconstructing the teams, it's about constructing the teams moving forward. I think we've seen too much deconstruction of the DC Universe teams. It's great to see right now the energizing of building of teams. Like I was geeking out about this in All Stars. I'm geeking out about this whole premise happening here. We've got this great event story that's going on in JSA right now that's spinning out of this team that's kind of been the legacy strong team coming together. And you know, what we're going to see coming out of the end of this with some of the team members going over to the JLA and then, you know, kind of a firming up of who is the JSA. This to me is, you know, Teen Titans is doing this right now. We're getting to see teams being put back together again. Because I got tired of the whole, the team's falling apart nonsense. I mean, it worked in a lot of cases, but I think it got to be too much of that. Now I want to see building teams. This is what I want to see, and I'm really geeking out over this. But this Superman moment, I want to go back to it again real quick. Because not only do we see him fighting here, some of my best lines. It may have been Clark that helped me plan the escape. This is terrific saying this. And who found a way against all odds to capture a working battlesuit. But it was none other than Superman Reborn who flew me up to the top of the tower. That I just, you know, that type of stuff, you've got me there. You know, that was you had me at hello. It was great. It was just such a great moment there. And Clark in that moment doing everything he can. And I'm with you. You're talking about the villains winning. I assumed in that moment, this is it. This is where they're going to win. And it looks like the villains are going to win there. But who shows up? We thought Ollie was dead. Ollie's still alive in that moment. Because even the Penguin alluded to the fact that maybe he's still alive. I don't care. Because we see the Penguin even. He's a part of this whole process. And, you know, I just dig this because it's everybody and it would affect the entire DC universe because it's a future set story. And I love that they pulled so many characters, heroes and villains, and put them in the same camp. And we get to see these characters, hopefully, finally, putting this world back together. He sends a message back to present day, though. And who does he send it to? A comatose Mr. Terrific. Is that who he sent it to? Is that how you took it?
Yeah, that's he sent it back. Only way he could is send it back through time to himself. So, but he didn't know when exactly he would get the message, and it's right when he's dying, comatose. So, does he even get the message? Does he get a piece of it? I don't know. And that's I love the ending, but I did yell no when I read it because cliffhanger like that just has me glued to my seat, wanting the next issue now. I want to see what's going to happen. I thought that was just a great usage of this epic battle where major heroes are dying. We don't get to see Clark actually die, but we know he's dead. Because even Terrific said there's no way Clark in a damaged fight suit can hold off of those guys. There's no way Clark could do it. And so Clark's going to die. It's over with for there. But you know, the fight continues on. I just really, it was those hoorah moments and just some great epic, you know, just feelings. I love, and I gotta so echo what you said about the shield, and just that whole thing. I was thinking the same thing you were. He was going to spray over shield, you know, blocking visibility. Maybe do something with spraying the spray into intake manifolds or something like that. Never even dawned on me that he was going to do the big red S on the chest. I loved that. I ate that stuff up. And it was just something that I really needed to see, a fight of that magnitude going on. And I hate to say it, I did need to see the heroes fall. I did need to see just this decimation of them. But it wasn't about winning that fight. It's about one goal, get the message back to the past. Now we see, did it work or did it not work? And I'm like, wow.
Yeah, and I'm really excited for this. I love seeing Alan Scott there. I love seeing Dr. Midnight and Dr. Fate. This team is very important to me. These are characters who I've loved. I love the fact that I'm really starting to get what Willingham's doing. I'm getting what Sturgis is doing. I like that they've had it feels like they've had a plan for all along for where they're going to take these characters and how they're going to get there. And I'm sure some of that plan has changed slightly because of characters, for example, going over to Justice League. But I love that I feel that these stories feel big. They feel epic. It's what we're going to start seeing in Justice League because we've got James Robinson talking about doing this type of thing again. These should feel like big epic teams. Yeah, I remember, you know, one of the great things about picking up the Jeff Johns JSA trades was big epic stories. You know, when you pick up those trades, they've got just incredible twists and turns, and you know what's going to happen next, and cliffhangers like this that you're mentioning, and they're delivering that for me. Does it feel different than Jeff Johns? Sure, but I don't want it to feel like Jeff Johns light. I want to feel it like their version of it. And what are they doing? What's going to be different about, their JSA, while at the same time, and this is the tricky balance, making it feel like a Golden Age team, or a team that is made up of members from the Golden Age who are trying to show a better way, who are trying to be those heroes that are your tried and true, good at heart heroes. And, this is getting back into that direction that I've really liked so much. And I don't know, I really dig this story. It looks really great. And I really wanted to talk about this one because I'm real passionate about JSA. It's one of those books that I grab every month and start reading right away just because it looks so good. We got to talk a little Secret Six number 21. I know 22 came out today. I haven't had a chance to read 22 yet, but just this whole premise of him, this exploration of him looking at his past and what Dad was like, and how much Dad influenced him to be a man, so to speak, and how he victimized Mom. I'm sorry. I want to see Dad, and I know it's coming. It's got to be coming, right? Dad's toast.
Yeah, we're taking him down.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see that. If not, we're going to see that he regrets not doing it. You know what I mean? Because part of me thinks Dad might have a bigger role in all this. Dad might be involved in some. I call it a weird twist. Part of me thinks like Dad might be the big bad in this somewhere. If not, he's dead in his past. I don't know. It's either A or B. It's either Dad's got a bigger role or Dad, we're going to see Dad toast. I don't know which.
I tell you, when you mention his dad maybe being the big bad, it clicked in my head. I'm thinking that's who the big bad behind this is. That's why, Catman's family was targeted. His son was taken. Kind of the father, getting back at the son. Now, the only thing I could possibly see as somebody else is maybe it's his mother, but that wouldn't make any sense. I can't say it wouldn't make any sense. I would have to see really what happened to cause her to do this dramatic change, because she's very protective of her son. And part of me is wondering, maybe, we see him grab that shotgun. We see him grab the gun as the mom and the dad are fighting. Maybe he goes to shoot the dad and hits his mom, kind of a deal. Or he shoots him but doesn't kill him. Or there's something else that's going to happen with this. Because I was initially thinking we're going to see him, I kept telling myself, I just hope they show it in page, because I want to see the look of the dad's face when he shoots him. But now I'm thinking he may be the big bad behind all of this. I like that concept that that's what it could be.
Well, it's trying to make him a man. Mm-hmm. The man that he never was when he was younger. Because, he goes through this premise that when he shows him the cub, still relying on the mother, for the mother's milk, and he compares his son to that. One of the things I love in the source, they had the preview pages, and I've read the preview pages of the next issue. That's how much I'm into this one. I was tempted, if we weren't recording today, I would have actually stopped at the comic shop to get the issue today. I'll wait till my box comes tomorrow, and I'll read it then. Although, here's the funny part. I leave work at 11:30, 12 o'clock tomorrow. I don't know if I can wait till my box arrives tomorrow to read this. And that's how much I love Secret Six. I might wind up with a second copy of this particular series. I like it that much that it's worth. I won't think there's a number of issues of Secret Six that I own 2 copies of, because I haven't been able to wait till Thursday.
You haven't been able to wait the one day.
Yeah, because I love this book that much. It is something, though, to see Deadshot looking at him. He hasn't been gone long, but man, is he thorough. These elements of these characters, him analyzing him. This isn't like Tom. Blake, it ain't like Blake. And, Deadshot's recognizing that psychologically something is getting into his head. That's why more and more I'm becoming more and more convinced it's Dad. It was funny, when you threw out the mom possibility, I never considered that. I guess I was assuming that Mom's already dead at this stage. But what do you think Mom's motivations would be? Would it be because maybe Son didn't do enough to protect her? Or what would you think? 'Cause, I'm not saying you're wrong, because it's interesting from the preview pages. It gets up to a point where you're wondering whether or not, and I recommend going to DC Universe's source. You can see the preview pages I'm talking about. I'm wondering, when I look at those preview pages, it looks like Dad's ordering Catman to shoot Mom, and we don't see what happens. So is he going to shoot Dad? Does he not shoot Dad, and Dad ultimately overtakes him and Mom resents him for that? Does Mom kill Dad? I don't know. See, to me, I always took it as Dad's the big bad, but what is your thinking on Mom being Because I thought that was interesting. I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just the opposite. I'm actually curious to see where you're coming with that conclusion as a possibility.
Well, the only reason I was just thinking it is if something goes wrong with Mom and she just goes off a deep end. Kind of her motivation is something happens and she gets crazy. She goes like kind of crazy type deal where it's it's the wrong directing of her anger. She's displacing it at the wrong place, and it's just a woot, off to her, kind of deal where it's dealing a crazy villain type of deal. That's the only way I would see Mom involved.
Have you used the woot before?
The what?
Woot?
Woot?
What is that? Is that your crazy sound or? Woot?
It's just a woot.
Is that kind of we're like off to the side now, or? We're just kind of a little off.
As I say it, I have a visual kind of, thing. You know how Kramer sometimes does that little hand motion?
Sure.
I'm doing that as I'm saying woot, so it's kind of like that. It's kind of like a Kramer, kind of thing.
Okay. So. The whole Dr. Occult bit. It's funny. I'm curious to see who the Six is going to be after this. Because I'm assuming, are you assuming Black Alice is gone when this is said and done?
Yeah, I don't think she's going to be around for much longer. I like her as a character. I like the story arc, how she's being played in here, and she's being used. But for some reason, I'm just thinking Bane's going to stick around instead of her. And I think that's how the team is going to be set up with Bane, not Alice involved.
I think it's either going to be Bane or Black Alice that goes.
Yeah.
I don't know which. I'm wondering if, because they talk about the wonderful dream, is this going to be, I don't know. This is curious. I'm curious to see what happens here. Which character it's going to be. Do you have a preference out of the two?
Out of the preference is the Secret Seven.
Yeah.
I really like the team as is, or even if they continue using, Scandal not as, sometimes she's not in the team, or one of them isn't on every mission. So there always will be 6 operatives, but it'll be one of the 7, one of the, 6 of the 7 will always be an operative, and one of them will be back at the base or doing something else kind of deal.
My preference now is the Secret 11, with 4 of them being Hawkman.
Oh, okay.
Because he's equivalent to 4 people, so that would be just kind of my take on the whole thing. I think I said that a while ago, that I feel that he firmly would fit on this team on some level, just because I want Gail Simone to write him. But no, I mean, I'm with you when you said Secret 7. That's actually, it's funny. I feel like one of them's got to give. I feel like we're in that place right now where those are my 2 that I see a target painted on as far as one of the 2 are going to go. I'll be interestingly surprised if it's somebody else. And it maybe is, you know what I'm saying? If there was a twist and it's one of the other members of the team. But I've come to like both of them and what they bring to the team dynamic. I don't know. It's going to be kind of interesting.
The only other team member I could see maybe going, but I doubt he will ever leave, and that's Catman. You figure out at the end of this story arc, maybe he needs some time off. And maybe he needs to do whatever he's got to do, and he takes some time off. And so he's the person who sits out, and we see the other people as the 6. Is one possibility I'm also seeing as maybe happening. But to be honest, I don't know, because he's such a crucial member of the makeup and just the moral compass of the Secret 6 that I can't see him leaving, but then I can actually see him leaving because of everything that's happened, where sometimes you just need to take a breather, you need to get focus. His kid, he's going to have to need to if the kid lives, that is, need to find a safe hiding spot for him, a safe place to put the kid, or who knows, maybe he'll want to do some dad stuff kind of deal. I'm not sure, but I don't know. I'm leaning actually towards Alice leaving, because I think the whole Bane dynamic is really cool, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm really curious to the whole thing to see where it's going to go. I think Catman's pretty much so. If he were to leave for some reason, you got to assume that's temporary, because Catman and Deadshot, you can't separate the buddy cops. You can't.
Right.
That's like a no-no. That's like taking Dinah Lance out of Birds of Prey.
Right.
They did that, but now that we see her back, it's like right away you see that's why you shouldn't do that. You don't take her out of the birds. She belongs with the birds. So, I don't know. It's Yeah, to me, he's great. Giganta, Dwarf Star. I love seeing them because from All New Adam, seeing their appearances there and seeing Gail Simone just have a chance to kind of work with them again a little bit. Lady Vic and King Shark. Talk about like pulling some scrubs.
Yeah. Well, he's got 6 operatives. That's all that matters, And who knows? That Giganta can throw down pretty good, probably. And,
oh yeah.
King Shark. Well, I don't know. Isn't he the one that Jeanette ripped his arm off when she made her first debut?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah. So kind of curious to see him accept to be on her team now.
You know what? It's funny. I'm picking on these guys. I love the lineup, these 4, in the sense that I want to see them have a mission together. That's got to happen because, we've got to see just what a disaster it is, right?
Yeah. And this is probably going to end very poorly with Bane and Jeanette pulling the heavy lifting, and making the mission succeed because of them. But I chuckled at seeing this. But who knows, Catman was a joke up until a while ago, and we see how cool he is now. So you never know what the correct writer can do with these people.
The big Russian dude, right?
Yeah.
The big coming back from that dude, I loved the whole setup to that. Talk about a badass build. I know you're trying to help here, Cook, but you will never understand men like Blake or me. So shut your stinking mouth or I'll put you on your grill till you're well done on both sides. If he comes for me, we fight like the lions we are. While pathetic little men like you may only imagine what such men might be capable of. And whichever of us dies will live on in whispered, frightened tales of you and your low ilk, as you delude yourself that you are hard men. If the cat comes, he comes, and one of us will die as a man unlike any you could imagine. And I need some extra napkins. Just that last line, and I need some extra napkins. Just, yeah. I'm not getting, dude, I'm giving him like a whole thing of Bounty.
Yeah, that's, here, take the container. Yeah, enjoy.
But Catman jumping on the back of his truck and seeing the voodoo doll lying there. Just that whole premise there was to me... well, not voodoo doll so much. Was that a doll that he gave his son?
Yeah, that's the doll he gave to his son.
But they tore it up. They tore it apart and made it like a voodoo doll, like where they poked at
right,
it. Yeah. Just as kind of a way to stick it to him. I take it back because I'm looking at that. I'm like, wait a minute, what am I talking about? Voodoo doll? That's actually his kid's toy. Yeah. And I mean, this is not a guy you want to anger any more than he already has been. But to see him just kick that guy through the front of the car, knowing how big and powerful he is, and I know I'm jumping around with the stuff with Black Alice right now, but I want to go to this battle between Catman and him. Because going on the power of this guy, this meta guy, you would think on paper that this guy would crush Catman. But Catman is so far gone at this point that but he's not. He's gone, but he's a meticulous assassin here. He's taking this guy apart piece by piece. He's a man on a mission. So he's not incoherent. It's just the opposite. He's so totally focused on his mission at hand that he is making no mistakes here. Stabbing the guy in the leg, just going through and tearing apart in the back. And that whole bit about, I cut your spine out, I'd advise talk. This is all about just really viciously getting what he needs to know. Information. He wants to know who's behind this. He wants to make sure he gets every one of them and takes them all down. Actually, it's funny, we've joked around on the show about 24 ending. This reminds me a lot of what was going on at the end of 24. Jack snapped. And, really at this point, it was about taking down everybody who ruined his life. This is what Catman's doing here. He's keeping a promise that he made to Cheshire, who's probably having the worst couple months in DC history. But yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's funny that the one scene where you see him looking at the doll, just the look on his face was just that, oh God, someone about to get really hurt here. And this was just a great panel, just a nice layout. And I loved how there wasn't a lot of talking through a lot of these panels. It was just the visual, going through. You see the shadow of the truck coming down on the guy right before it hits, but it's a truck dropping on him isn't enough to stop him because he has this power and he's got it over his head. Great, that completely exposes his body. He now no longer has anything that he could use to block the blows. So Catman goes in for, the kill shots. He goes in for the pressure points, the body areas, hits him, cuts out the spine, hits the ankle, does the various bam, 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 stick and move type stuff. That it was just a beautiful layout. I loved this fight sequence. This is just something that, I'm really digging seeing him, just go over the edge and just unleash and show you exactly how nasty he can get.
Just to show you, it's funny, and I might be reading too much into this, just to show where my head was at with the doll. Because we saw the whole, the needles being poked into the doll aspect of the whole thing, and we see that lead to his memories of Dad, where it was Teddy Bear was, ripped up and stuff like that. I kept thinking, and I might be, again, reading too much into this, that those were clues that Dad is the big bad. Dad's behind this. And I might be and I'm fully well aware that I might be reading too much into that. But it was something that I don't know. I love a story that I'm passionate about, whether I'm right or wrong. And a lot of times I'm wrong. I don't care. It's not about that. It's about being emotionally invested in a story enough that you're trying to speculate, that you're trying to look beyond the page, that you actually care about the events that are happening and how they play out. That, to me, is a sign of a great comic. And that works here. This whole bit with Black Alice and, of course, Scandal, where we see Scandal in a different place now. Scandal is back to being, she told Bane that our wonderful illusion is done, in that previous issue where they had that confrontation between the two of them. I think we've seen a Scandal now who's kind of come full circle and she's back to being her normal self. And if I'm Black Alice, I don't care if you're Demon Etrigan or what right now. I'm not going to go toe-to-toe with Scandal Savage. And I love that I want to see that fight between the two of them. The preview pages not only allude, we start to see that fight start kicking off. And I love that. It's one of the things I love about the Source. I want to say that again. I think it's really great if you are trying to figure out what books you want to be picking up in the future and stuff like that. Start visiting the Source. The preview pages that are there are absolutely wonderful. I know a lot of our listeners are. Jared, actually, I'll talk about Jared in a little bit. Jared pulled off some information from the Source about that whole Time Masters Vanishing Point miniseries and shared it on the forums. And I actually do want to go back and talk about that because there was some interesting dialogue on the forum this week that I really enjoyed. And I want to go back to some of the things that Mart was talking about and stuff like that as we continue on. But the Secret Six preview was really great. I love this series a great deal. I love when one thing we got to talk about the Cleveland when they get out there. They're at that game reserve. You even have any idea where we are? It reminds me of Cleveland somehow. Is it Cleveland? It smells like Cleveland. I'm like, now, okay, we got to talk a little bit about the smell of Cleveland, Jim, because brought up here.
I got a definite theory on this.
Okay,
here's the deal. Right now, you think about it. What are we known for? We're known for LeBron James, and we have a river that caught on fire. So the fact that someone is saying we smell like an African game reserve, I'm all in. I'm all for this. I'm going to wear this as a badge of honor. Cleveland, the city that smells like an African game reserve. I'm all for it. I say, let's make up the T-shirts. Let's start getting it out there. We'll call up the mayor. We'll make this the new city motto. Because right now we got what? We're a plum or something like that? What style is a plum? We sound like we're ripping off the Big Apple.
Right.
Nobody, nowhere, no how would ever claim this as their badge, claim this as their motto. I say we embrace it. Let's go for it.
I love that. See, I was all ready to defend Cleveland. It's honor from this. But now you have me so totally convinced that it was a compliment compared to the river lying on fire and swill. That, okay, I'm with you. I'm on board with this.
Our rivers don't burn. We smell like Africa. That's the new motto.
Stank like a lion and proud. All right. All right. Yeah, we'll move on from that. Yeah. That totally went in a direction I didn't expect, but I'm going to go with it because it's silly. Speaking of lions, though, the lions at the end, and that he leaves Loki with those lions. And don't worry about that, Loki. You will die like a lion. Actually, he's going to die like a lion's food. But it just really... Do you see Catman coming back from this?
It's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a hard thing for him to come back, from this. I think the big thing is going to depend on who the big bad is. If it is, in fact, his father, if he does get some closure, by gutting the dad? Does his son live? I think all those factors are going to play into whether we get him back or whether he's crossed over a line and he goes to that point of no return. You know, you look at right now, so far, all the people he's killed with questionable, with exception of the one girlfriend who you could argue back and forth whether he actually killed her. You know, because granted, he didn't throw the knives, but he did pull her in the way and use her as a shield. So there's some question whether he did kill her or not. I don't know, you know. But you look at so far, the people he's killed, the people who've died these horrific deaths, have all been killers, have all been nasty people who, in a way, this is a nice little kind of poetic justice to them that they're dying in these fashions. So there's still a little bit of him left in there that he could come back from this. You know, is part of the reason why I wonder, after when all this is said and done, if he's going to need some time away, if he's going to need some time to get his head straightened out. So that's why part of me wondering maybe he could go away for a couple issues, a story arc or two or whatnot. But I also then think for him to put his mind at ease, he would have to actually be working. So
delve back into business.
Right. So it's as I think more and more about it, you know, I change my opinion, I change my mind. It's one of those things that I'm really looking forward to seeing how all this plays out. Was
the grandson taken because he couldn't, you know, and the son being put on, you know, trying to kill the son at this point, was the grandson taken for the purpose of making him the man that Catman never could, or was the grandson killed to put him over the edge and finally make him the man that he should be? I don't know. I'm really fixated on Dad being the big bad. I found your mom theory interesting as well. I don't know. It's been a gripping storyline. I really love Secret Six. It still remains. I said when the Birds of Prey issue came out that was my favorite issue of the month. Reading Secret Six, I think I've got. I mean, reading. Secret Six. I've got a tie now. I almost said reading Birds of Prey. I'm like, no, this is Secret Six. I think I've got a tie now. I don't know, because I reread it again, and there's so much to love about this book. This is a nice problem to have.
The one panel that we talk about periodically that we'd like to see posters made, that ending page where, you know, he's telling Loki, you most definitely will die like a lion, that page above it, when we first see the lions in there, and, you know, it's got that shadow cast over, you know, Blake's face, so he's really dark, and you just see the lions getting ready. But I love the fact that there's that one female lion kind of like, you know, kind of rubbing up against him, kind of that, you know, moment of respect to who Blake is, that he's one of them. He's like the alpha lion of that pride, and they look at him in that way. I thought that single center panel was just an amazing piece of artwork that I really liked.
You know, dude, I want to talk real quick about Booster Gold number 32. Giffen and DeMatteis take over this series. The events take place during the classic Great Darkness saga, and I think it's appropriate to talk about this because we brought it up during our Legion discussion. I really like Booster in this. He's trying so hard to save lives. He puts himself at risk by assuming that the eye that powers the Emerald Empress will follow him and that he'll keep the civilians safe. And I love that. It's a heroic move. Like, let's take that out of here and let's get the danger away from the people. Here is an interesting twist that shows how evil she really is. She catches on to the classic noble heroic intentions, and they bill this as putting the bwahaha back into Booster Gold, and while there is more of a humor element, it wasn't a jarring transition, because it's clear they have respect for Jurgens and what he brings to the table, so there's this feeling of a natural transition here. On a side note, though, this is a very solid jumping on point. All you need to know is that Booster Gold is a covert time-traveling hero. He works to keep his name and presence out of the timeline. This offers the writers an opportunity to put him in larger events that we've already seen, yet also gives them the chance to do it in a way where it doesn't contradict anything. This is a deeply human story. Booster learns real quick that you can't save everyone. You can only try your best. His plan goes horribly wrong. The civilians die and one girl is left. He takes responsibility for her and tries to get her to safety. And I really liked that element there. It reminds me of that Benigni film, Life is Beautiful, I think it was called, where he's like the endearing clown early on, but then we see the true hero. And Skeets has some comic relief from Rip Hunter. Loved the jokes about his disdain for children and pets. And some people might consider you a pet, you know, that whole little bit. The reason Booster arrived at the Great Darkness War is because Rip sent him to grab a mysterious object that could not fall into Darkseid's hand because it had the possibility to ruin all of reality. That object? The helmet of Dr. Fate. The reason Booster wound up in the wrong time, he can't tell Rip's 5 from an 8 when he's given the date. It just, it's this book, the key to it is that humor is balanced out with serious storytelling. This is a hard trip it's a hard trick when you're putting in a slapstick into a superhero book. It does work here, and it truly impresses me because there's some really strong comedy moments, but I never lost the sense that this is a very deep emotional story. You see people die, and you see a hero have to face the fact that his plan didn't work. He tried his best. He did the heroic thing. He was selfless, noble, saying, hey, let's take the eye after me. Come and get me. Let me get, and that is a heroic thing. Get the villain away from the people. Think of the civilians first. And this is a Booster. You're seeing a different Booster here in the sense that it's not about getting the pat on the back from the civilians, because he could very seriously say, let's have the civilians watch my battle with the Emerald Empress. It's not about that. It's like, come follow me. Let's get you away and save some lives. I was truly impressed with Jurgens putting Rip Hunter in place for the Time Masters mini involving Batman, and now with Giffen and DeMatteis giving a nod to Max Lord in the segments. This is like in between like this Justice League Generations Lost book. I really like the fact that these teams have taken a chance to say, here's where Rip Hunter, in the last issue we saw Rip Hunter being put into place for Time Masters. And Return of Bruce Wayne. We've seen Booster now being put into place for Generations Lost. I really like placeholders telling me where stories fit. It's not always necessary, but this has worked so well in Booster Gold. Booster Gold has been a fantastic book. This continues with the new team. If you haven't been reading it, it's fun and different. And this is really important to me when I have a pull list. What makes this book unique from the other books that I'm reading? And this has that unique feel and flavor with the time travel and seeing events from a different perspective, because this is very grounded. This is happening below ground. This is events that you wouldn't have seen on the surface level of what was going on in Great Darkness Saga. These are things that happen below ground to civilians there. And I really liked that. It was just a very clever story. And pulling something, I never thought they'd pull a Great Darkness Saga, but they did, and I liked it. It was good.
Yeah. And I tell you, it was like seeing, there was so many oh my God moments when, the Booster has his hero moment, but basically everybody else gets slaughtered. So his plan doesn't backfire. But even that one lady who survived, what she witnessed, she couldn't live with it. And she flings herself, does the big, huge, just throws herself off the man-made cliff there down the chasm and just leaves that little girl. Her mind was just so wow over what she's been witnessing. I thought that was just oh my God, I can't believe they did that. Yeah. I could, see them having the villain kill the lady, but it went beyond even that. She just, her brain was gone. She couldn't comprehend it, and she just did that. I was like, it was one of those holy crud moments for me that I was like, wow, they're really doing it with Booster here. But it never felt like it was out of place. And that's something I thought was just wonderful. You have this amazing, just, oh my God moment, but it's not even like, I'm not even saying that it's because of this new writing team, they got to shake things up. No, this very fits to what I was reading before. This was one of those great segues into a new creative team, and it just feels natural and feels like this is still Booster Gold. This is still the 30-some issues I've read before. So I was like, wow, I really, really like this. It really locked Booster back in my place. When there's a change of creative team, I do look at, is this something I'm going to want to keep getting? I liked it before. Is this something that I'm going to want to do? This issue right here has sold me on the new creative team. I'm not going anywhere from Booster. He's definitely locked solid in my pull list.
I want to go to the forums real quick for just a couple quick comments. And Jared and Chris actually were making the point that they were looking at this Time Masters Vanishing Point as a series that might tie into Flashpoint, might be a lead-in to Flashpoint. And I totally didn't see that. I was so totally focused on this being, I was looking at it like kind of a Blackest Night Wonder Woman series, and I still think it's that in the sense that it ties into this Return of Bruce Wayne event in that kind of perspective. But they're right. It's clearly, Jared pointed this out from the source, and I do remember this now. When he pointed it out, I'm like, oh yeah, got it. And I went and I reread the article, and I'm like, yeah, I remember that way back when they announced it now. But I totally had a brain freeze on it, so I thank them for pointing it out. It says that it's going to have clues to the next big event. Do you see that leading to Flashpoint? Do you see it leading to a Batman event? Do you see it to Where do you see, like, because to me, Vanishing Point is going to be about, I think, it's going to be about them escaping the Vanishing Point. But now they've got to be convinced that there is a deeper level of storytelling that's going to go on there, because I think with the events that they're facing and the foreboding to the mention of Vanishing Point, is this going to deal with this event that we're talking about with Bruce and Bruce coming back to present day? Is Bruce's return going to... What if Bruce returns and... Let's go on to this theory. What if he doesn't beat it? What if Bruce returns and what they're afraid of happens?
See, here's the thing. Thoughts never even entered my mind. I never really, and it's a definite possibility, and it could very easily happen. Mm-hmm. And that's what everything could be about this fixing something that Bruce couldn't solve. But, it never entered my head that he wouldn't. And I actually didn't even see the connection until you mentioned this. And I'm like, that actually would be a great segue into that. It puts a whole new meaning to what's going to happen at the with Rip and them. I'm like, wow, I'm kind of like in shock right now, thinking, yeah, because I had it set in my mind what it was going to be. I was like, I figured it was going to be a cool story arc, but I thought it was just going to be them and boom. I didn't see it as the lead-in story to something else.
Yeah.
And I saw it as the ending story, the capstone, the final piece of this whole Bruce Wayne story coming through. So just looking at it differently now has me really really just curious, excited, wondering what we're going to get out of this. It's kind of neat.
And the other possibility that's running through my head, it's funny, Jared and Chris really have opened up my mind in a different way, as I was thinking about the things they were talking about this week. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, well, okay, let's go into the theory then that we're back to our theory that Bruce does beat this, because I'm a fan of that. I'd like to see that happen. But what if along the way this time gets damaged by this creature that we've seen going through, or by, the events, Bruce being thrown back there, and Darkseid's trap, even though Bruce beats it, has caused damage that is putting the history of DCU in turmoil. And we see an event coming that involves the heroes traveling throughout DC's history to repair it. I don't know. I'm really curious to see what's coming with this. Or does it tie into Flashpoint, and we don't really understand what is actually happening here and what the Flashpoint is? Because there's this talk of going back to the Big Bang. So what does that mean? Is that the Flashpoint? I don't know. I'm curious, I guess I didn't see the Flash involvement in it. I'm not 100% sold that it is going to be a Flash event, because part of me thinks Flashpoint is going to be more akin to Sinestro Corps War, where that was a true Green Lantern event, versus a Blackest Night where it was a whole universe event. But I don't know. Maybe Flashpoint is a whole universe event as a way to kind of get people excited about the Flash. I'm very curious to see where this is going and what's happening. I'm not sold on any one set thing, but my mind is open to a very different possibility with what they've made me aware of and reminded me of from that site. So I want to thank them both for, I don't know, it makes it more interesting to me. I like exploring possibilities and thinking about that. So I don't know. I'm curious to see where this is going to go. Another thing I want to talk about from the forum is Mart was making mention of Kendra and our talk about Shire and Kendra, and how he feels Kendra's gone to the great beyond, and that Shira came back, and, why do we need to explore that, and why is Heth set back and all that. I think what's interesting to me and why I'm fixated on that, it's not just Kendra, what happened to Kendra. We've seen established in Blackest Night to Brightest Day that these heroes were reanimated into their bodies, correct? Into their dead bodies? Because is that why? I don't know. And maybe you're taking this differently than I am, Jim, or maybe listeners are. So please, I'd love feedback on this from listeners in the forum or through voicemails or things like that. I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking on this, because I've been thinking about his comments, and I'm wondering to myself now, am I seeing it right? Aquaman clearly has been affected by the events of Blackest Night, which leads me to believe he was reanimated into his body, and we're seeing the after effects of that with him talking to dead fish. Firestorm, we've seen now it established in Brightest Day that Ronnie Raymond knows about the deaths, Jason's girlfriend. He saw that. That's something that is in his mind that he witnessed. And he's dealing with the trauma, even though he's not responsible. How can you not feel responsible when it was your body doing it? You know what I mean? So he's feeling guilt from that. We're seeing after effects from this, and I have a funny feeling we can guarantee we're going to see more. So I'm still under the theory then that Shayera reanimated into Kendra's body. What's interesting to me is why Shayera. What's been said is there's a reason for the 12 returning. Why was it Shayera and not Kendra? I'm interested in that. And I think I don't think that that's going to be a throwaway. I think that's going to be explained. Mark could be 110% correct that Kendra has gone to the great beyond and that's it and we're done with her. And that may be the case. But then what is the reason Shayera's back? Or they could be connected still. I'm not either way. If Kendra has gone to the great beyond, I'm not against that. I just want to know. I want to know, why is it Shayera? Why is she back? I find that curious. I'm interested. Just as interested as I am in why Aquaman's, still dealing with bringing back dead fish and things like that. I want to see the heroes, what is it going to take for them to grow beyond this? How are they going to beat this? How are they going to get back to it? And there's got to be a hook to that. Because I really don't want to see for the rest of his life Aquaman bringing back dead fish. I find it intriguing right now. I don't want to necessarily see that forever. So I don't know. Yeah. I thought it was an interesting point that he brought up. Are you with me in the sense that you see them being back in the reanimated bodies?
Yes, definitely see them as being back in what was, the Blackest Night bodies that was given this life. So the body itself, was, reanimated, re-energized, but it wasn't a complete cleaning. There's still that darkness in them. And I think that's something that they need to... There's going to be I'm thinking there's going to be something, an event that they have to overcome, that they have to deal with to purge the darkness from them. With regards to why, Shayera, not Kendra, I was looking at it as because it was the body that was being used, was Kendra's body, but it was who... It was kind of because it is Shayera who keeps getting reborn, and every time they resurrect, it is actually Carter and Shayera being reborn in the different lives, and that's why it's Shayera. It's a reboot, so you're going to go back to the original base. I kind of took it as that Kendra was gone, gone, but there's still, because it's her body, there's still going to be something there. It's going to be and I think this is what
you're saying. An echo? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
like an echo,
like an
Kendra?
Echo, or just something. Because you think about it. Aquaman's dealing with the calling the dead fish. John, has got his dealings that he's dealing with what his past that came through. Carter is going after going after Hath-Set. There's got to be something with Shayera, not just Carter and her going after Hath-Set. I'm thinking there's gonna be just a little thing she's got to deal with beyond, just the other story arc. Because I see the Hath-Set story. Try saying that 10 times fast. No. I see that being Carter's battle, not Shayera's battle.
Why would Hath-Set be Carter's battle only?
Because that's from the basis of the beginning of the fight. Wasn't it Carter?
No, it was Carter and Shayera. They were both murdered by Hath-Set.
But I thought it was this is my understanding of the lore, so you can correct me. But it was the Hath-Set was in love with Shayera and wanted to take out Carter
and killed them both.
But killed them both because he couldn't have both of them. Well, he knew he couldn't have Shayera, so he did kill them both. But in his initial planning, it was Hath-Set versus Carter, and that's how the initial fight was. Those two going at it after the same female. That's how I think the Hawk legend is. If I'm wrong, correct?
No. You're, in the sense that you're making it seem more like it was a love triangle.
Yeah.
When there was no love triangle, there was more of a stalking. Khufu and Shayera were lovers, and Hath-Set killed them both to get them out of the way. And it really wasn't. He really was a power play for him.
Okay, see, I took it. I've always taken the story, as being that Hath-Set was jealous of what he had and he wanted it, kind of deal where he wanted the girl for himself, and plan didn't go down the way he wanted, so he kills them both. But if that's completely wrong, then I don't know. Because that's how I saw this thing playing out. Because that's why I was thinking it was a Carter Hath-Set fight going to be just that final battle between the two of them. Okay, it's time. It's on now. We end this here and now kind of deal.
If you go back to the original Golden Age, I actually pulled out my Golden Age Hawkman archives. What really happened was they thwarted Hath-Set, Carter and Shayera. he killed them both for thwarting it. And because of that, when he killed them, the dying prophecy, I die, but I shall live again, as shall you, Hathset, and then I shall be the victor. So you're right in the sense that it is Carter kind of spewing it out at Hathset, but it isn't because of Hathset's love for Sha'ira. They managed to stop this evil villain from, taking over the world. That was why he killed them. And Jeff Johns expanded upon that when he retold the story, but that is the original roots of it. It wasn't a love thing. It was more of and I really like the Golden Age origin. It's kind of very simplistic, but it was kind of a cool Golden Age origin. It was set them aside. That he was like this swashbuckling hero. And I'm a fan of that. Go back to DC's roots and take this element, and they used it in such a clever way to explain this character that I think there's something cool about that. You're publishing these hardcover archives, and it's kind of cool to pull something from that. But I love that, you didn't have to read that when Johns redid it. He put it into, The Return of Hawkman. He put it into that story, a more modern version of it. And it was kind of cool just to pull from that lore. I thought it was just kind of a neat little thing about it. But, so I'm curious as to why Hathset's back, because that shouldn't be the case. I'm curious if there's going to be some explanation as to why he's back. Is it because they're back that it kicked this whole thing in there? Or was our understanding of what happened to Hathset not there? I don't know. To me, I find it interesting. Mark made some comments about it on the forum, and it just kind of, I'm like, I'll kind of respond to it, why I find it interesting. And I love that about the forum discussion, whether we all agree or disagree. It doesn't matter. I like the discussion. And I just find the forum interesting. So if you haven't had a chance, check out the forum. It was the episode 209 thread, and there's an interesting discussion there, and we have some different opinions, and I thought it was kind of cool. It was kind of fun it's great to talk comics like this, whether we agree or disagree. It's interesting discussion points on these books. So
you filthy criminals.
Hey, Sean and Jim. Just wanted to give you guys a call. I listened to your Birds of Prey podcast. And I love when you guys keep more current with the books. Speeding Bullets episodes are usually my favorites. But I wanted to rage about Red Robin, number 13, just got, and written by Fabian Nicieza. So glad he's back on the title. I've really enjoyed his run prior to the Bat Title reboots. And just the scenes with him and Damien and Dick and the flying cape, all the gang stuff, and sort of really almost taken right back off from where ICUs were left off. Not ignoring all the Tam Fox stuff, but just really great. And the artwork's really nice, too. So, just enjoying that. Thanks a lot, guys. Enjoy the podcast. Bye.
It's so funny. You and I were ready to wrap up because we actually, chronologically, we've recorded our show opening and closing now already. And I told Jim, I said, we got a voicemail. Let's just chat about it real quick, because I figured it was going to be kind of a quick comment. One of the reasons why we did the Speeding Bullet shows is we've got listeners who love when we do like the kind of the cover to cover of big trades and stuff like that. But then we have listeners who, like you, prefer when we do kind of the more current material and stuff like that. And I felt like we hadn't done enough of the current books lately, where we hadn't really kind of touched on things like that. And so it's one of the reasons why we've done a few episodes like this in there as well. Well, it's funny. Now that he's talking about Red Rock, we got to talk a little bit about this.
Oh,
Red
God.
Robin
I love this issue.
It's such a geek out moment.
Oh, my God. It's really, we've seen Tim come back. We've seen, my good friend, Tim Drake, Tim Wayne, however you want to refer to him. He's my buddy. He is back. We're seeing more of the comical aspect of him, but it's not comical as he's losing any of who that makes him a really cool superhero and makes him a really cool, great guy. But we are seeing these funnier, lighter moments when, even he comments on, this just feels right. Even Damian as Robin, this just is right. And I love those moments, and just he swoops in, he's trying out the flying cape, and the gusts of wind.
I'm sorry, I hate to cut. We got to go back just to that moment where they're swinging, because I think what is so cool about that and why it feels so right is we've seen this before. We saw this with Bruce, we saw this with Dick, and we saw this with Tim. They did this before together. What was that? The last will and testament of the DC. Yeah. Remember when they did that in that? I love that that's brought in to this. You know, seeing this moment now is this connection. Like, this is the next generation. They're in this point. I love this. It's moments like this. You know, I've been preaching for weeks now. I'm like, oh, Bruce is back, and I'm so glad to see him. I'm ready to see him back as Batman and all that stuff. Then I see this, and I'm like, I'm torn again. Because this is a moment where I'm seeing Dick Grayson as Batman, I'm seeing Damian as Robin, and I'm seeing Tim Drake as Red Robin, and they're having this moment together, and I'm like, wait, this works. And I love this. Everything about it. I like the relationship between Dick and Tim here, how this all played off. I'm seeing, you know, like Tim's at a point right now where, okay, I've spent the last year searching out my quest for Bruce Wayne. I did this battle with Ra's al Ghul. You know, I've proven to everybody that Bruce is still alive. Now, where do I go from here? Where does my life go from here? And we see that resolution of not only that, but him with Tam Fox. And I love this whole thing with Tim and Lynx as his kind of, I don't want to say his Catwoman completely, because I think Lynx is a little more, well, I shouldn't say she's decidedly evil. She really is kind of Red Robin's Catwoman here, isn't she?
I'm thinking she's definitely Red Robin's Catwoman, and I didn't even see this coming until this issue. I was like, oh wow, what is she? You know, a good guy? Is she bad guy? Is she that wonderful neutral? What is going on here? I thought this is a nice little kind of development in his life, because I've always seen Tim being with Stephanie, kind of. I like seeing those two together, Batgirl and Robin together. I thought that was a nice kick. Well, now we've got another mystery, another player added into the mix, and I'm curious to see how this is going to play out. I really dig this.
She's part of the Hong Kong police force, and it's funny, Tim turns her in. And is she telling me the truth? Doesn't matter. For what I have to do and how I have to do it. And it is really, he turns her in because this whole public display was his opportunity to put himself in as a name brand player in Gotham. He needs for the police to see him as one of the good guys. He's right now in this moment publicly putting a good public face on the name of Red Robin. And that's what's important about it. And that's what I love about it. What Jason Todd did to that name is very different than what Tim Drake or Tim Wayne is doing to that name right now. I loved his awkward moment too when he flew in with the cape and it didn't work right, and he's kind of like saying, "Don't worry, officers, I've got this. I'm going to prove that my being here is a good thing." It's such a great moment between them. But I loved that moment where internally he does the sacrifice of getting her arrested right now, because if she is who she says she is, she'll be able to get out of this situation. But he's blowing her cover possibly here, because in order to get out of this, unless, she does it as Lynx, she would have to have her superiors pull some strings to get her out of it. So if that's not what's going to happen here, she's going to have to get out as Lynx, and he's really potentially blown her cover. And I'm not saying he's wrong. I love the twist in that, where he knew in that moment, I can't right now worry about whether or not what she's telling is the truth. I can't worry about whether or not I'm blowing her cover. This is the opportunity. This is the chance for my bigger mission, my larger mission as Red Robin. I have to put that ahead of what she's doing here, because it's all about Gotham City and who I'm going to be here. And that was an interesting moment there. I agree with him. Do you agree with what he did?
Oh, I definitely agree with what he did and why he did it. But to be honest, I see this as a great thing for her, to kind of gain some street cred, to definitely, if there's anybody who has had any question as to who she is, she can really make a name for herself as this powerhouse villain, as this enemy of the Bat family. So she could really use this as a way to actually, step up her status and step up her role as, kind of, you do get some street cred, you do get some respect from the villains if you do a little time, or if you get busted, you get caught and you escape.
You get busted by the Bat, one of the Bat family, Red Robin. Oh, that's interesting, because you know what? It's funny, now that you mention that, I'm like, well, I'm rethinking my thoughts here, because I was convinced that he took a chance at blowing her cover. It's just the opposite. He actually saved. If he let her go, her cover's ruined. You're teaming with a cape? What? So actually, in many ways, by doing what he did, he saved her at the same time.
Oh, definitely. This was one of those things that he, in a way, had to play it out this way, because I don't know, this, for me, I love seeing that, and I love him kind of look on his face, and he doesn't know what to do, so he's just got to go with what he thinks is right. He's like, I got to do this. This is part of the mission. I got to continue on, and we'll deal with it later.
He's got his little rogues gallery where, Black Mask has been incarcerated, Jaeger's been incarcerated, Captain Boomerang incarcerated, Clayface apprehended, Killer Croc apprehended, Lynx. But then we've got Scarab, Joker, Anarchy, Penguin, Bunny Spider, Two-Face, Lex Luthor, Ra's al Ghul, Lady Shiva. These are his targets. This is to figure out who to do it against. The only ones he's got figure out what to do, figure out how to do it, checked off. Figure out who to do it against, checked off. 1 and 4, figure out where to live, figure out how to do it, figure out who to do it with, are his 2 that aren't. So we're going to see him kind of his own base of operations where he's going to go. I want to see him operate in Gotham. Where do you want to see him operate?
Oh, definitely Gotham. I don't know where he could actually work out of, though. He needs his own Robin's Den. He needs his own base of operation, not in the Bat Bunker and not in the Batcave anymore. But I don't know where he would operate out of. That's the thing. But it has to be Gotham.
It was funny. It's great to see, there's a positive energy to Red Robin now, to Tim. We've seen him come full circle in the first 12 issues of this series. And it is great because when we had Fabian Nicieza on, he was commenting on that he would have loved to have the opportunity to write a brighter Robin. This Robin that would be, more of at the core who he sees Tim Drake as. And this is who I see Tim Drake as. And I've loved that he's had kind of the opportunity where he took him to where he needed to be the Red Robin that we've seen previously. Now he has the chance to now take him in a different direction, take him back. He's in the light. Now let's tell fun adventure stories with him in the light. I will say, I'm a little bit torn here in the sense that while I would love to see him operate out of Gotham, I'm not against him jet-setting because I actually really did kind of like that in the issues that were going on in the first 12 where we got to see Red Robin operating around the world. So I would go either way with it. I'm thinking we're going to see him operating in Gotham, though. But I wouldn't be against the other option.
The only reason why, one, I'm really diehard towards him in Gotham is because I love the interaction between him and Dick, him and Stephanie, Oracle, and also I like him as the head of Wayne Enterprises. And I like that, seeing Tim Wayne doing what he has to do, kind of out of the costume as well. So
I'm with you that he'll have to stay locally in order to do that aspect. So actually, you're 100% correct. I think that is definitely the dead giveaway. What do you think of the new costume?
I really dig it. I like the tweaks and little just modifications to it. It's still the same basic Red Robin costume, but there is an adjustment to it because you got to make little tweaks. You got to change it. It's not going to be exactly the same one that was before. One, it could maybe make people think that there's a new person in the costume. So if anybody who had negative dealings with Red Robin won't have such a negative dealings with this guy, they can maybe even ask, is that really the same guy? I don't know. He's acting different. Maybe it's somebody new, kind of, and it's like a nice fresh start for him.
Yeah, I actually like the concept, too, that he's realized that Tam has to know that Bruce is Batman. She had to figure this out because of his relationship with Bruce. So I like the question, what do we do now? I can't lobotomize her.
Yeah.
So I have to trust her. That's interesting for him to be in that position. And it isn't unheard of because Bruce has had love interests who have known the secret. Silver St. Cloud is a great example of what we're seeing over in Widening Gyre. I'm interested to see where it's going to go.
Yeah, I still like the fact that Damian only calls him Drake.
Yeah.
He refuses to acknowledge that he's a Wayne. And I always like seeing just... Damian is not as condescending to Tim now, but there is still that it's not a Dick and Tim relationship that Damian and Tim have. There's something there beyond hatred, but it's not the brotherly kind of respect and admiration type deal.
But there is something new there between them. And I think, when I say new there, I mean that their relationship's grown over time. And I think I love that this book echoes what we've seen in the growth with Damian in Batman and Robin. You know, that he's more comfortable being the hero that he is now. I don't know. It's something I'm really digging the growth of this Bat universe. It's like I said, this was an issue, one of those issues where I'm like, oh boy, Bruce coming back. I'm thrilled. I love Bruce Wayne, but I'm not sure how I want all this to play out now.
Yeah.
I'm really not, and that's kind of cool because that's a sign that the storytelling on both perspectives. Like, I know when I read Return of Bruce Wayne #3, I'm going to shift back the other way again. But I think this is very much going to be a roller coaster for me. Do I want Bruce back? Do I want Dick to stay? What do I want to see happen here? And I love that. That's really a sign that the Batman books in general, not just one, but all of these books are grabbing me on all levels. We actually, on our next time we do this, we have to talk about some of the other Bat books, Batgirl, stuff like that, and just kind of do some casual chatter about Streets of Gotham and events that are happening in all these books, because I think Gotham is a very interesting place to read about.
Yeah.
Holy caffeine!
Want to give a shout out to our sponsors once again, DCB Service and InStockCaves.com. Also, we are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasters. Want to remind everyone you can hear us every week on Get Your Geek On Radio. That's GetYourGeekOnRadio.com, a radio station committed to making geek chic. We're also supported by ComicCollectorLive.com, ComicCollectorLive.com, your comic book management source. Jim, our next episode, we're going to be joined by Ken Hare to continue our discussion with JLA Avengers. It's going to be all issue 2, and it'll be out in less than a week. I'm on vacation as of a couple of days from now, and I'll have a chance to edit that, and I want to get it out before a week, just because you guys have been so patient. I really want to thank our listening community. This time of year, I know we get kind of sporadic with the episodes having a couple extra days in between them. We've still stuck with our 4-a-month goal, which is going to be our goal for 2010 as well. But you've been, the support that we get from our listening audience, that you are very patient with the fact that, hey, a couple days here, a couple days there, and all that. I really want to tell you how much I appreciate that support and friendship. And that'll be episode 211. And that'll be real cool. And Jim, I want to thank you, and we will see everyone in a few days.
Bye.